That day, against a clear blue sky dotted with pristine white clouds, the silhouette of a dragon appeared, soaring upward. The dragon was a fierce shade of blue, opening its massive jaws to roar loudly. It circled wildly through the sky, flying with a frenzy that seemed untamed, utterly free in a way I had never witnessed before. The dragon passed directly above a man standing below, and just because of that, Asta, bloodied and exhausted, looked up at it. Above the vast expanse of sky, the dragon spread its wings and flew farther away, prompting Asta to follow its movement with his gaze. He belonged to the great magical lineage of Declan. He had decided to withdraw from his role as the one who cleans up others' messes. Then he clenched his hands tightly beneath the sunlight that was the only reason. Dark clouds gradually rolled in, covering the white clouds that had been scattered earlier. A black crow opened its beak and cawed. Suddenly, a powerful voice echoed, "Now, you're the last one remaining." The crow flapped its wings and flew off, joining the rest of the flock, while below, Asta was using magic to strangle someone. The green-haired man, in pain and helpless, said, "First, you have been hiding your true strength." Asta did not respond, only letting out a faint, calm smile. Not long after, he replied, "This is not the power of a mere cleaner." Then he affirmed, "I am the one asking the questions here." Holding a book in his hands, Asta asked, "This is a magic tome, is not it?" The green-haired man, pale and trembling in pain, stammered, "Yes." In that vast space, it was just the two of them. The green-haired man continued, "Do you really think we came here only to take down a hunting dog?" Asta, showing no intention of letting up, responded, "If it were trash from the Declan lineage like you, perhaps the whole pack would have come." He glanced at the other man casually and asked, "So, how do you use it?" The man refused to answer. "I do not know," he said. Hearing this, Asta looked at him thoughtfully. If that greedy Declan had known, he would not have buried it in that dusty basement. Asta stared at the book in his hands and reflected. He did not even know how to use it, yet he had been chased to this extent. Immediately, Asta drew a conclusion, that alone proved how valuable it truly was. Suddenly, the green-haired man spoke, drawing Asta's gaze, "Hand over the magic tome." Even in a vulnerable position, he tried to threaten, "I will beg the leader to spare you. Maybe you will even get to return to being a cleaner." Asta showed no fear, only a faint, knowing smile. He maintained his magical grip around the green-haired man's neck. "And what authority gives you the right to say that?" Asta countered, threatening in return. "Fine then. Any last words?" Asta asked, as the man writhed in increasing pain, groaning, "You wretched Asta." Asta responded to his mocking complaints with a calm remark, "Oh, so you have finally accepted yourself. Well done." Suddenly, a slow, cane-supported footstep approached, making Asta flinch instinctively. He turned around, and the danger was palpable. A man appeared, surrounded by streams of red light. "You have quite the intuition," he said. Asta fully turned to face him and muttered to himself, "Anyone who carries such murderous intent." The man gripped his staff tightly. "It is a pleasure. I am Farron von Declan." He introduced himself calmly, the patriarch of the Declan magical lineage, the most prestigious magic family in the Eastern continent. Hearing this, Asta was astonished. The patriarch of the Declan clan, Farron smiled faintly and made a proposal. "If you do not mind, I would like to reclaim that magic tome. We can talk afterward." Asta narrowed his eyes at Farron, thinking, "It has been more than 10 years since I started as a cleaner. I have devoted half my life to Declan, but this is the first time I have ever met the patriarch in person." He recalled the group from the Declan lineage, the top magical family in the Eastern continent. The imposing image of Farron filled his mind. The patriarch was said to be the strongest mage in their history. Curious, he wondered what kind of person he really was. But in reality, Farron wore a profoundly kind smile. Seeing this, Asta froze, thinking, "This is going to be troublesome." Farron, too, looked helpless at Asta's blank expression, then fell silent. Immediately, Asta lifted the book in his hands and asked, "Are you really going to take another person's spoils so casually? Do not you feel ashamed?" Farron did not respond verbally. He just laughed. And so, the two of them stood facing each other, each smiling in their own way. Asta forced a strained smile and scolded himself. "I should not have eaten that dragon." The patriarch shows up personally. What terrible luck. His hands trembled. This magical energy is not something to mess with. He is the most overwhelming mage I have ever seen. Farron slammed his staff into the ground, shattering stone into fragments. It would be easier if I just killed you and took back the tome, he said, but I will speak plainly. His tone turned cunning. Return under the Declan banner, hand over the magic tome, and I will overlook everything you have done. Asta remained silent, giving no reply, while Farron pressed on. Your talent is truly impressive. Watching you fight, I can't believe we did not notice sooner. Just a filthy drifter from the Grey District, practicing the same trash techniques cleaners use. He remained standing there, staring at Farron as he tried to tempt him. With strength like yours, if you had the backing of the Declan lineage, how high could you soar? Asta's eyes nearly drooped in exhaustion and frustration, imagining just how far Declan could reach if he himself became their sword. Farron continued to paint a picture of advantage for Asta. Together, you would stand by my side, making Declan even greater. You would be remembered in the annals of history. In the gray, overcast sky, a dragon spread its wings, flying back toward Declan. Farron concluded, of course, you must still return the magic tome. Asta replied succinctly, fine. Farron's smile was warm. Good. Then let us begin. But first, I have one condition. Asta gave a mocking grin and looked at Farron, sneering, hand me the position of leader, and then I will consider it. Farron also smiled, though veins began to stand out on his face. A subtle sign of tension. Asta clenched his fists, emitting a blue glow, and asked, you have been watching the battle, have not you? Below, the green-haired man gasped, his tongue lolling from the pressure around his neck. His head was twisted sharply to the side. Asta pressed on confidently, did you count how many people died because of this? That act succeeded in enraging Farron, his face darkening with fury. Yet he remained calm, standing there. So this is how it will be. You could die, you know that, he warned. Hearing those words, worry flashed across Asta's face. He stood silently for a moment, thinking, he is right. Suddenly, rapid footsteps struck the ground. Asta leapt high into the air, fists raised in exhilaration. Yes, this is perfect. Two streams of light, white and red, collided as the two of them faced off. Asta's face contorted with rage as he yelled, you won't know which is long and which is short until you actually measure it. Farron replied calmly, very well. Seems I need to show you my position. He pointed to the red circle before him, preparing for something. Farron stood below, allowing Asta's attack to come at him. He kept his hands on the circle with complete composure, his expression unnervingly serene. It seemed Asta had been struck by the technique, his face shifting in color and expression. This madman. From above, Asta dropped quickly toward the ground, landing nimbly on his feet to absorb the impact. As he fought, his mind wandered. So this is the patriarch of Declan. Asta lunged forward, yet kept glancing back cautiously. There was not a single gap in his defense. Suddenly, a voice rang out, losing focus, are we? He intercepted the beam of light from ahead. Farron asked calmly, did not you say you would only know if you measured it? Some things you do not need to measure to understand. Asta stood there, placing his hand on the red circle, and lifted his gaze skyward. Farron affirmed with gravity, just like the distance between you and me. A sudden flash of golden light burst forth, illuminating the entire area. A massive red circle formed around Farron to shield him. He spoke, I won't kill you just enough to bruise you. So, are you ready to talk now? Farron looked up at the gray, overcast sky. He suddenly laughed. And what if I bowed now? What if I agreed to return under Declan's shadow? Do you think I would trust you? On the other side, Asta focused on casting his magic. His face was streaked with blood. His wide eyes made him look terrifying. Do you think I would trust you? Immediately, he launched an attack, shouting, I am sick of eating scraps, got that? Asta's strike slammed down toward Farron with tremendous force. Farron's expression turned cruel as he yelled, who wants to go back to being a dog? Just because of a shiny chain and a big house does not mean it is not still a kennel. Farron nonchalantly jabbed his staff into the ground, sneering, pathetic. Almost instantly, a red circle materialized beneath him. The light from the circle surged outward, hurling Asta back across the ground. Farron raised his hand to control the red circle, looking up. "Let me show you." His tone suggested he was preparing to strike a decisive blow, demonstrating the overwhelming power he wielded. At that moment, Asta knelt on the ground, glaring upward and cursing, "You bastard." From above, streaks of violet lightning struck down from the sky. In retrospect, that was the reason. Asta recalled the pitiful look on his own face from that day, the day he had lifted his head to the sky. The gray, overcast sky held the sight of a dragon taking flight, gliding freely above him. The memory of his own intense pain surfaced as well, along with the reason that had made him lift his head that day. Farron remained there, leaning on his staff, speaking calmly. "Impressive. I thought you were dead, yet you still held on." Then, with a hint of mockery, he asked, "So, have you felt the difference in our strength?" Asta, his face covered in blood, stared at Farron without replying. Finally, he admitted it quietly, "You are too strong." Farron stopped and asked, "Do you wish to finish what remains unfinished? Are you ready to talk now?" Asta, covered in wounds and narrowing his cold eyes, asked in return, "So you want me to return to being a cleaner?" Farron raised a hand to his chin thoughtfully and replied, "Oh, I never said that. I did not tell you to be a cleaner." Immediately, Farron laid out his true request. "I want you to become the patriarch of Bongshan." Hearing this, Asta could hardly believe it. His eyes widened in shock. The patriarch of Bongshan. Farron's overwhelming presence became tangible. The Declan lineage, the most powerful magical family in the Eastern continent, capable of challenging even thrones, now desired his loyalty as if he were a vassal. Asta slowly drew the book from his hands and asked, "So that was your true goal all along, was not it?" Farron, dismissing the question lightly, replied, "You are still underestimating your own value. I want you in that magic tome as well." After that, the two of them fell silent, simply looking at each other. Asta extended the book toward Farron. "Good. You made the right choice." Farron smiled and took it, signaling that all of Asta's past misdeeds were forgiven. Then Farron's tone shifted, emphasizing the honor that remained. "Now, there is only glory when standing alongside Declan." Suddenly, the book in Asta's hands began to emit a violet light. Farron's face darkened. "What are you doing?" Asta glared at him and said, "What do you think? You said I could hand it over, as long as I did not mind it being burned to ashes. Did not you?" Farron's anger surged, veins standing out on his face. "You will never die easily," he growled. But Asta cut him off. Just shut up and listen." Holding the book bathed in violet light, he spoke calmly, "I have never done this for money. Cleaners do not get paid. So why do I keep this? Because it has to do with money." Asta pressed further, startling Farron, who widened his eyes. "Have you ever heard of a cleaner being eaten by the Declan heir?" Farron seemed to understand immediately the forbidden magic. Asta confirmed it, "Yes. That bastard swallowed my teammate whole. Declan hid everything." Comprehending the truth, Farron continued, "So all of this was for revenge." Asta sighed in weariness. HMPH. Why should I even do that? I know how worthless a cleaner's life is. My teammates too. He glanced with his piercing blue eyes and stammered, "I just." Through the gray clouds, warm rays of sunlight began to pierce the sky, as if to ensure that they would obtain what they sought. Asta smiled faintly, "But that requires a lot of money. And more than that." Finally, he concluded, "I have decided to retire. I will never return to that kennel again." Farron remained silent, waiting. "Consider that your final words." Then he snapped his fingers once. A blue flame surged forward, surrounding Asta. Farron turned away and said, "This is the precious azure flame of Declan. A flame that never dies." He glanced back. "Burn within it, and regret your choice to your very core." Asta stared defiantly. "Regret? Hell no." Farron's back gradually disappeared from view. If the only option left was to be a dog for Declan, Asta thought, he would rather return to the Grey District. And if he could not return, then dying would not be so bad. Sitting within the blue flames, he still smiled contentedly. He laughed loudly, joy breaking free. "How long has it been since I felt this free?" Asta's expression softened with melancholy. It is a pity I cannot escape death. Yet even engulfed in flames, he thought, it is a pity I cannot escape death, but I do not regret it. If I were born again, I would seek freedom and revenge properly, hundreds of rivers flowing into one sea. Surprisingly, Asta remained unharmed. What the hell? He recalled Farron's retreating back and wondered if everything had finally stopped. Asta stood behind a boulder, peering back. He held the magic tome in his hands. Then he let it go, letting the blue flame engulf it. He watched in astonishment. What the hell? A golden circle suddenly appeared. Asta still did not understand what was happening. What in the world is going on? A coin clinked as it fell into an old, worn bucket. Asta, in the form of a young boy, dragged the bucket along as he begged for coins. He froze in place, stiff and bewildered, asking himself silently, what is this? I was being burned alive, was not I? Something felt off. Asta's heart thumped as he slowly lifted his head. Looking around at the simple, rustic houses, he felt a surge of curiosity. Where is this place? But when his eyes fell on the bucket holding a few scattered coins, a thought struck him. It is as if I have gone back in time. This place feels so familiar. Suddenly, Asta gasped, a vague realization dawning. That is right. I remember now. This was the Grey District, the place he had once dragged himself through day after day, before becoming a cleaner. People bustled past without paying him any attention. He looked down at his own hands, still unable to believe this miraculous turn of events. No. Could it be? I have really gone back in time. The sky above was a brilliant blue, sunlight soft and warm. The streets of the aging Grey District had gradually quieted. Asta slumped by the riverbank, staring in stunned silence. What the hell just happened? He gazed at his reflection on the water. Though his face betrayed no expression, inside he was deeply confused. Muttering to himself, he whispered, "This is me. But me as a child." Suddenly, a magical circle appeared faintly within his chest. Asta's mind went blank for a moment. If anything here confounds me, it is this mark. I have gone back in time, yet this still remains with me. Sitting in the lush green grass under the blazing sun, he pondered for a while, gradually reaching a tentative conclusion. I do not know how, but the magic tome must have done something. Still, thinking back to the book's appearance, he hesitated. Could it really have this power? Yet recalling that the lazy patriarch of the Declan family had appeared in person made it clear how important the book truly was, and precisely because it was so important, no one knew anything about it. Finally, he pushed aside the tangle of thoughts and told himself, it does not matter. After all, this seemed like a good thing. It is too real to be a dream, so I can't believe this is just a dream. Looking at the water before him, he grimaced inwardly. The stench of Sile's lecture hall drains is revolting. I am definitely still alive. He waved his arms experimentally, half floating in thought, realizing he was not just surviving. Shaking off that stream of thoughts, Asta's spirits lifted. He clenched his fists with determination. A morning full of life and energy stretched before him, a situation where anything could succeed. Yet he still pondered quietly to himself, then. What is success? Under the blazing sun, he closed his eyes briefly and whispered, I once had a dream. Yes, I once had a dream. This was also the dream of my comrades, Asta thought, letting his mind drift in hazy memory, recalling the old days when he and his teammate gazed off into the distance together. And then, thinking of the reason he had decided to retire, Asta suddenly turned to the person beside him and called out, Number 1. I mean, Aster. Aster did not turn his head toward him, but asked indifferently, we were born to wander the Grey District. We have nothing, no good food, no fine clothes, no education. Which of those do you think hurts the most? Asta asked back, no good food. Aster did not repeat himself. He continued, if it were only hunger, we would not be like this. If we can't eat, we would just endure. Then he probed further, but what do you think dragged our lives down into this sewer? Unlike Aster's subdued tone, he kept goofing around, playing pranks and answering casually, I do not mind it at all. Aster, annoyed by the teasing, still tried to speak seriously, but Aster cut him off blandly, I told you I do not mind. Aster reached the limit of his patience and shot Asta a look that was anything but friendly. Seeing that, Asta stopped teasing and, helplessly, said, "All right, fine. I will tell you." Look at his eyes. Only then did he listen seriously as Asta spoke. Not having an education is the cruelest thing. If we had been taught properly, we would not have to live like this, trod under the heels of those filthy nobles. The two of them stared out toward the sunset on the horizon. Asta went on, "So if one day I get to retire." He trailed off and unconsciously beamed. Back in the present, Asta finished his thought with a smile, "Build a library." He vaguely pictured that vision, a place where anyone regardless of wealth, status, or gender could read freely. "But I want to go one step further," he thought, then raised his hand and looked up at the blue sky. He dreamed aloud again. "Build a tower. No reason, just because I like tall things. Put it anywhere." At the thought, Asta could not help but whisper, "Any book will do. But there is one book that absolutely must be there." The more he imagined it, the more excited he became. He laughed maniacally with delight. "I will put Declan's most secret manual right in the main hall on the first floor, so even a Grey District beggar, some noble's bastard, or a butcher can pick up a copy." The book's cover would bear Declan's emblem, and inside would be the secret techniques they valued more than life itself. He dreamed bigger and bigger. Thinking about everyone holding that book hand in hand, he could not help but exclaim. Just imagining it made his mouth water. But one problem remained: how to get that book. The sky grew bluer still. He folded his arms and nodded, muttering happily, "Well, that'll be my job in the future. If I spread Declan's manual everywhere, they will love it to death." Suddenly, a foot slammed into his face. Someone shouted, "That is it, this is the one." Asta was knocked flat to the ground. The boy who'd hit him yelled, "You bastard, I have been looking for you. I saved a spot for you and you hide here. Do you want to die?" With those venomous words, he began to punch and kick Asta mercilessly. Asta's whole body ached, utterly bewildered by what was happening. He instinctively clutched his head, thinking to himself, "Who is this kid, in ambush?" But he had survived countless battles. Except for aerial combat, he was a seasoned cleaner. With that thought, he boldly grabbed the foot that was stomping him, stopping the attack. The boy froze in shock at Asta's action, but quickly recovered, shouting, "Oh, you dare block my strike." Asta's cold, measured voice slowly uttered each word, "You hit me 7 times. So now take 70 in return." His expression turned icy, his entire body radiating killing intent. The boy instinctively felt fear. Seizing the moment, Asta prepared to land a punch straight to the kid's face, but his hand suddenly cracked with a sharp, bone-snapping sound. He withdrew his fist, dumbfounded, thinking, "What the hell, it is glowing." While he hesitated, the boy swung a punch directly into Asta's face, shouting, "You bastard, you dare hit the bot. You brat, you actually touch me, are you insane?" The boy continued, mercilessly hammering Asta with punches and kicks, sending him sprawling to the ground. Asta could not resist, curling over to protect his head, tears streaming down his face. Helplessly, he thought, "It hurts. Hurts so bad it could make me cry. But the pain in my heart is worse than my body." The boy accidentally kicked a rock and fell backward. A sack tumbled into the water. Seeing this, Asta thought, "Now's my chance." The boy scrambled to his feet, shouting again, "You little brat." Seeing Asta running off, he roared in anger, "Where do you think you are going?" Asta shouted back, "This is not running away." Suddenly, he turned to face the boy, his expression cold. "I will remember your face." In his mind, he calculated strategically, "This is a tactical retreat. The hits you landed on me, I will wear them on my chest like medals. I am a seasoned cleaner, a man who does not know the meaning of giving up." In a corner of the street, Asta examined his hands, muttering quietly, "Damn it. This is not good." Looking at his bruised, swollen wrist, he worried aloud, "I am not some office drone. Yet just a few punches and my wrist is dislocated. This body is way too weak." He banished the grandiose thoughts from his mind and resolved, "Forget the tower. First, I have to fix this body." At that moment, a voice called out, "Asta, are you hungry?" He saw a boy approaching him. Rubbing his wrist, Asta looked up at the boy and asked in return, "You know me?" Damien replied honestly, "No." Asta turned his face away, scanning the boy carefully. He silently assessed him, "Yeah, I would guess so." He looked pitiful, yet his clothes were expensive, probably a scion of some noble family ousted in a power struggle. In other words, a walking time bomb, beautiful and dangerous. Damien stood still, quietly watching him. Asta called out tersely, "Kid." Damien pointed to himself and introduced, "I am Damien." Asta was about to continue, anyway, but when Damien cut him off, saying, "My mother's Bianca." Hearing that, Asta froze, speechless. Irritated, he thought, "Why do I suddenly feel like I am learning things I should not know?" After a few seconds of silence, his frustration broke through. Half scolding, half questioning, he snapped at Damien, "You out of your mind?" But Damien innocently replied in his own way, "I do not have a mother." Realizing he would misspoken, Asta felt a pang of guilt. "Oh. That is my fault." Still, outwardly he maintained a firm, decisive tone. "Well, I do not have a father either. So that is even. Now let us part ways here, understood?" Internally, he reasoned that it was best not to get involved with such a volatile kid and to leave before things got messier. Yet Damien remained motionless, neither leaving nor speaking, just staring at him. Asta's patience ran out. He asked bluntly, "Are not you going to leave?" Damien answered honestly, "I will go with you." Asta, irritated, thought, should I just smack him? But he did nothing, only gruffly warning, "Step aside." Suddenly, Damien reached out, touching him gently, concern in his voice. "Hey, does it hurt there?" Then, smiling brightly, he said excitedly, "I will fix it," while simultaneously performing magic. Seeing the magical circle Damien conjured, Asta blinked, dumbfounded. "What is that?" Damien, noticing his curiosity, replied cheerfully, "Magic." Asta had an answer in his mind, but something about it unsettled him even more. No, this was not just ordinary healing magic. The light that flowed from it, an advanced healing technique tied to the Blandor family. The same clan once crushed by Declan triggered a distant memory, vaguely surfacing in his mind. His instincts screamed a warning, that filthy, dangerous thing that any seasoned cleaner would avoid is now clinging to me. Unconsciously, his gaze locked on Damien. Questions flooded his mind. Why was a Blandor child in the Grey District? At this time, the Blandor family should still be at its peak. Without overthinking, he urgently called, "Damien, Damien, hey." Startled, Damien exclaimed, then smiled brightly and asked, "You called me?" Asta froze, stunned, muttering a curse under his breath, "Damn it." Seeing Damien's heterochromatic eyes clearly, Asta suddenly snapped awake, a few realizations striking him at once. "I remember now. A person with Blandor blood has those unusual eyes. The monster of the Blandor clan," he thought, and his mind replayed a haunting scene, a sea of flames, corpses strewn everywhere. And Damien's chilling laughter when he had been corrupted, the Mad Butcher. No matter how many times he is killed, he never dies. But at this very moment, Damien was just a cute, innocent kid, laughing happily. Asta sighed in wonder. Ah, an ant. The boy was carefully counting each ant, 1, 2, and so on. Seeing the scene before him, combined with the memories flashing in his mind, Asta could not believe it. Dumbfounded, he froze for a moment, muttering to himself, "Are you kidding me?" A few people in black cloaks charged toward the light. "Back when I was a collector, before the time rewind, I had once been sent to the Blandor clan under orders from the Declan family. The past life me complained irritably, damn it, if this is the Blandor family's business, why bother dragging us into it?" The person beside him replied, "Well, it is not like we can understand the schemes of the upper class." Another one suddenly leapt close to him, saying, "I heard in the soft territory there is a monster. Rumor says dozens have died." He frowned, pondering. A monster, like. Not an ogre, right? But then, his expression shifted to one of fear. And then I saw it. Something had been split in two right before them, not an ogre. The upper half of a human, bare-chested, gripping the torn halves in both hands, a human ripping another apart with bare hands. The monster's face was pure madness, fighting while continuously casting Soft's exclusive healing magic, laughing while killing, a pure frenzy. It trampled over the corpses of hundreds of people, the Blandor clan's monster, the Mad Butcher who could never die. The creature's golden and red eyes, coupled with that constant, insane smile. Damien von Blandor. Back in the present, Damien was squatting, smiling brightly like a blooming flower. He began counting. Under Asta's scrutinizing gaze, 1, 2. Asta glanced at him, full of doubt, thinking, is this for real? Why is the legitimate son of the Blandor family, the clan leader's only son, living in a place this dilapidated? The next instant, Damien stood up and shouted, food. Instinctively, Asta blurted, what? Damien grinned brightly, come on, eat. Mom said if you want to stay healthy, you have got to eat well. Sickness comes from not eating enough. Asta silently agreed in his heart he was right. Brushing off his pants, he stood up. Though no words of reproach were spoken, the sting of the blows still lingered. Then he asked, so, do you have any money? Without hesitation, Damien held out a bag of gold coins. Here. Suddenly, Asta slung an arm around his shoulders. Damien looked at him curiously, huh? Asta gave a bright thumbs up and suggested, let us be friends, okay? What do you mean? All of a sudden, Damien asked. Asta, shameless, looked up and continued, I mean, friends are friends, got it, and friends share what they have with each other. In the next instant, Asta's eyes lit up as he pointed ahead. Let us go, my friend. Time to eat. Damien's eyes sparkled as he echoed, friend. Under the sunset sky, Damien suddenly asked, so, what do you have? Asta replied casually, me, I have got a friend now. That sounded pretty cool. Night fell over the small inn tucked among other houses. Asta opened his mouth and let out a loud burp. Asta rubbed his round belly and sighed in satisfaction. That meal was really good. After washing my face, I feel even more refreshed. Seeing Damien glance around repeatedly, Asta asked, curious, what are you doing? Innocently, Damien replied, I did not know the place we ate at had a house upstairs. I usually sleep on the street, so it is pretty convenient to know there is a house. Asta could only respond perfunctorily, ah, I see. Suddenly, Damien propped himself up on both hands and exclaimed, right. With a serious expression, he added, I do not have a father either. Asta processed that for a few seconds before immediately shaking his head, no, you do have one. Damien countered firmly, no, I do not. Asta said nothing aloud but silently thought, do not turn this into a contest of who has suffered more. Deciding to change the topic quickly, he asked, and you? You have a mother, right? Damien looked around, puzzled, where, not here. Asta groaned, smacking his forehead. If she is not here, then she probably does not exist. That is a harsh way of thinking. He shook his head, better check the situation a bit first. Asta asked again, how long have you been here on your own? Damien counted silently before answering hesitantly, Since I ran away from my family, I have slept 10 times. Hearing that, Asta's expression darkened slightly. You ran away, were you being chased, 10 times sleeping? That means 10 days. Damien innocently corrected him, I also take naps, you know. Asta's head filled with question marks. Damien smiled and held up 2 fingers. 2 naps a day, of course. I mean short naps. So, all in all, I have slept 10 times. Asta's confusion deepened. He muttered to himself, so that is probably about 3 or 4 days. Damien flopped onto the bed, complaining, but I have not had a proper sleep since I got here. The floor's too hard, I can't sleep. Asta suddenly froze, glancing up. Then he turned to the soft pillow behind him. Burying his face in it, he shouted, this kid's been crazy since birth. Having vented, he sneakily looked to the side. Well, while this kid's still stuck in the Gray District, I can act as his temporary guardian. Might even be a good chance to start building connections with the Blandor family. Damien lay on his back, eyes closed, muttering, this place is so uncomfortable. Asta thought to himself, later, when I confront Declan, this might come in handy. And influential families usually have a lot of rare books. Asta suddenly recalled the tragic images from the past, of course. First, I need to deal with something else. 57 grudges etched deep in my chest. Thinking that, he looked up and reminded, Damien, I am heading off now. Do not bother me if you do, it will be a big problem. Hearing that, Damien immediately jumped up. Are you practicing breathing exercises? Asta replied mechanically, yeah, that is right. When I am done, you do it too. I will wait. Catching the mood, Damien cheerfully said, got it, understood. After settling that, Asta slowly closed his eyes and focused. In my previous life, I laid the foundation of my magic using the basic spells a scavenger could obtain. He thought to himself, but the limits were so obvious. Images of himself darting through the night from that past life flashed before him. That is why I secretly infiltrated so many noble families to steal magic. In the darkness, shards of glass and various spells rained down. He had nearly died countless times. The magic he learned that way included body enhancement techniques of knights, spirit summoning, alchemy, and a pile of miscellaneous arts, but he suddenly remembered the figure of the man leaning on a staff, just before dying. A cloaked figure stood amid endless clouds, struck by lightning. I had encountered a truly destructive power, and because of that, he told himself firmly, this time, it has to work. Asta opened his eyes, staring straight at the ceiling, his blue eyes shining with determination. His lips parted slightly as he murmured, "The first magic I must learn is the Declan family's origin technique, the root of Declan magic, capable of assimilating all types of mana." He closed his eyes again and breathed evenly. I once recorded this to study, but now I finally have the chance to use it for real, the breathing technique. Suddenly, a fierce flame erupted from his left chest. Asta's eyes widened in pain. Too hot. It feels like molten lava coursing through me. Damn it. What is this? He silently told himself, focus. I have to control it. Yet his eyes widened again as he noticed something else. On his hands, a different kind of mana was appearing, impure, tainted. Why is this here? He remembered an old man who had once transmitted mana into a young man's body, a high-level technique, only passed down to the main bloodline of noble families. A stream of blue mana surged through Asta's body, forcing his own mana to circulate, burning away all impurities in his meridians. His entire body felt immersed in a lake of pure mana, being purified. Asta jolted awake from the trance, sweat pouring down his face. He gasped and sat up. How long has it been? Beside him, Damien was still sound asleep, peacefully unaware. Asta widened his eyes, staring at his hands. No more importantly, there were no impurities left in his meridians. His mana had been purified, its purity higher than in his previous life, maybe even beyond that. He furrowed his brow, looking up in deep thought. Even so, Asta could imagine the figure of that man, towering several times his height, defeating Declan. Even if he were reborn 100 times, it might still be impossible. Yet he still clenched his fists with confidence, because one thing was certain. Asta bared his teeth in a proud grin. My chances have increased. I am a scavenger, a person who never gives up, even if there is only 0.01% hope left. The next morning, a shout of surprise echoed through the inn. Oh, amazing. Damien touched his hair in astonishment. My hair. It is brown now. Asta cast him a sidelong glance and thought, good. The silvery hair that was too conspicuous is covered up. After changing clothes, the Blandor family won't notice. He silently calculated. Now, only one final thing remains. Just then, Damien spoke up. So, what do we do next, my friend? Asta froze, staring at him. But then he turned and smiled, his eyes gleaming with delight. He spoke 3 short, decisive words, setting the stage for chaos. Meanwhile, elsewhere, someone stretched after a night's sleep. Spotty bathed lazily in the morning sunlight. What a good sleep. And the weather's nice too. But he suddenly froze, staring straight ahead. Asta and Damien were slowly approaching Spotty. That brat. He began to speak. Where have you disappeared to? Huh, finally showing your face. And in that outfit, are you bathing in a sewer or what? Spotty showed no hesitation and fired back. Who is this kid? Looks rich just by the way he carries himself. Before he could finish, Asta punched him hard in the stomach. As Spotty collapsed, stunned, Asta finally spoke. Looks like I found the right place. Because you are still vivid in my memory. Asta clenched his fists in fury. First, you are going to take every single one of the 123 hits coming your way. Just then, 2 other accomplices rushed out. What the Spotty, what is going on? In an instant, the entire gang had assembled. An intruder, wait. Is not that the youngest one? Asta's excitement showed in a broad grin. All familiar faces. This is terrifying. Both he and Damien wore strange, dark expressions. Who knows how far we will get today? Damien suddenly asked. So, what are we playing, my friend? A powerful punch landed squarely on the young man's face, twisting his jaw and sending him sprawling backward. But Asta did not stop there. He followed up with a decisive strike to the stomach of the next attacker, sending him bouncing backward and rolling several times across the ground. Asta moved freely, his fists swinging without holding back against anyone. Even with the entire council's crowd surrounding him, no one dared to touch him. Standing to the side, Damien could not help but watch in awe. Asta's fists clenched tightly, mana gathering within, compressing the power before unleashing a relentless series of attacks. Damien's eyes sparkled with excitement. Amazing. As he fought, Asta glanced toward him and reminded, Damien, this is what people call peak performance. Damien let out an impressed "oh" and immediately imitated him, praising, absolutely top tier. Just then, one of Asta's targets collapsed unconscious right at Damien's feet. Quick as a flash, Damien knelt, placed his hands on the man, and gently channeled healing magic. It is okay, I will take care of you. Once healed, the man regained some composure and whispered a faint thank you. But Asta was not done. He suddenly appeared beside the man like a shadow, lifting his shirt and asking, how many hits has it been so far? Then came a harsh sequence of sounds, thwack, crack, interspersed with continuous screams of agony. Asta fought from morning until late afternoon. One by one, people fell, yet Asta remained vigorous, fists flying without fatigue. When someone tried to sneak away unnoticed, Asta immediately caught him and slammed a staff onto his backside with a crisp, resounding crack. Then Asta slowly approached and asked, how many times were you hit? The young man clutched his reddened backside, stammering, I lost count. Asta called over, hey, friend. Damien ran up eagerly, is it my turn now, my turn now? Asta's voice was calm, almost singing as he issued the order, hand healing, now. The young man despaired internally. Stop, please. Asta twisted his hands with precision and smirked mockingly. Listen carefully. You are filling in the role of the box, got it? Meanwhile, Damien remained cheerful in his support role, repeating, hand healing, hand healing. The man about to be punished screamed internally, stop, damn it. I can only count up to 2 digits. Night had fallen. A full moon stretched across the sky, casting a pale light over the rooftops. Below, Asta finally finished today's reckoning. Thanks for today. The assembled men formed a straight line, responding sincerely, truly. Thank you. Asta smiled in satisfaction. Your mana distribution is solid. I am proud of you. Damien clapped enthusiastically, promising, all right, let us play again tomorrow. Asta's thoughts brimmed with pride. He had completed over 100 strikes per person, totaling more than 1,000 hits. Even for someone like him, a seasoned cleaner of countless battles except for mountain fights and aerial combat, this still counted as a fresh challenge. Amidst that, a faint reached his ears, pulling him out of his thoughts. The young man, his face mottled green and purple, rubbed his arms and bowed slightly, voice soft, am I done now? I think that is enough. Asta nodded gently, granting permission. All right, you can go. The young man twitched at the corners of his mouth and forced a smile. Actually, this is my house. Asta let out a long, drawn-out sound, tinged with mockery. You want us to pack up and leave, huh? His hand tightened on his own sleeve, the discomfort clear in every word. The young man, sensing it, hurriedly explained, no, that is not it. We will leave immediately. Without another second's hesitation, they scurried away. Asta's gaze followed them. This is not resentment. Then he sensed something. He turned slightly, feeling a twinge of awkwardness. Damien, still innocent and cheerful, waved enthusiastically, while Asta's eyes fixed on the end of the alley. Someone was coming. A figure landed there, exuding an intense aura, steadily approaching. Asta furrowed his brow, analyzing quickly but subtly. That unmistakable feeling, just like a cleaner. His gaze shifted tensely to the person beside him. In his mind, he ran through possibilities, chasing him, targeting Damien. I was careful, yet they still traced him. I can't believe the Blender House got here first. Asta closed his eyes, trying to channel the little mana left in his palms. With so little left, casting even one spell would be difficult, let alone engaging in close combat. This is not good. He fixed his eyes sharply, deep with resolve. But who am I, anyway? Both hands moved deliberately, condensing mana. Even as a cleaner, Asta had never had excess mana, not once. Situations like this, he had faced hundreds. Nothing could faze him. At his fingertips, a magic circle appeared, drawing in mana, compressing it. And compressing it once more. The condensed spell formed a small spherical orb. This would be enough. Without a second wasted, Asta turned. He knelt on one knee, adopting a forward-aiming stance as if preparing to fire at the approaching figure. This is my only chance. Then something unexpected happened. The approaching figure, upon drawing near, suddenly dropped to their knees. Asta froze, stunned, eyes wide like a goldfish, utterly bewildered. The man fell to his knees, sliding forward along the ground as he screamed in anguish, "My lord!" Hearing that familiar voice, Damien froze. "Alfredo!" The man clutched him tightly, weeping bitterly. "I have been searching for you all this time. Do you know, where have you gone? What have you been doing? This wretched steward has worried over you to the point of losing sleep and appetite." Full of resentment, Damien shoved Alfredo away. "Let go, I am not coming back." Alfredo wailed even louder. "Oh, heavens, my lord, you might as well kill me instead." The steward's voice trembled with agony. "Heavens, leaving the house. Why would you do such a thing?" Asta, standing behind, could not help but curl his lip in disdain. A moment later, Alfredo grabbed Damien, who was pouting, pinning him securely under his arm as he stood upright. "Forgive me for causing a scene in front of esteemed guests." Restoring his composure, he spoke with polite dignity, "I am Alfredo, steward of the Blender household." Asta returned the courtesy with a simple nod, "I am Asta." Alfredo smiled warmly, extending his hand toward him. "It seems Lord Damien holds you in high regard. If you do not mind, would you like to return to the Blender estate with us?" Asta swallowed hard, a wave of inner conflict rising. Returning to the Blender household. He began to run scenarios in his mind. The basic rule for prestigious houses: avoid what is filthy, and avoid what is too lofty. He could not predict exactly what calculations they had in mind. In the end, Asta smirked, "It is fine. After all, I had already intended to approach the Blender house anyway." His goal had long been set. Fortunately, the Blender territory lay directly along the route to the city, where the Zenyan Academy stood, considered the pinnacle of Eastern education, and its library was renowned as the finest in the region. He had planned to build the best library himself, so stopping by was not such a bad idea. Nodding slightly, Asta agreed, "Understood. Thank you for your assistance." Alfredo turned and began walking ahead. "I will go prepare the carriage. Please wait just a moment." Asta held his coat, pondering. "I may have strayed a little from my path to build the library, but good things can come my way regardless." Under the silvery glow of the full moon, he put on his clothes. "All right, let us see if the food at the Blender estate is any good." That night, the sky was beautiful. The full moon hung high, silently casting a layer of pale silver light over everything. After a short ride, the carriage stopped before a sprawling mansion. "We have arrived. This is the Blender estate." Asta stepped down calmly, his gait confident and steady. He looked up at the structure before him. "This is my first time coming here officially, the Blender family estate." At the entrance, a long line of people stood neatly in respectful formation. Alfredo bowed slightly, gesturing inward. "It is late, please rest comfortably." "Lancy, I am counting on you." The maid behind him nodded. "Yes, sir." She stepped forward, eyes sharp, and said, "Please follow me, Lord Damien." Sweating but forcing a smile, Damien murmured, "Lancy." The door closed behind them with Damien's shouted words echoing, "I have made a mistake. Lancy." At night, the mansion was wrapped in silence. Most of the rooms were dark. Along the dim corridor, only the faint moonlight filtering through the windows fell upon the stone floor, while Alfredo walked alone in one direction. At a particular door, he knocked lightly. A voice called from inside, "Come in." Alfredo turned the doorknob gently, pushed the door open, and slowly stepped inside. Within the grand, classic room, a woman's voice rang out. "Damien." He bowed his head and reported, "The boy from Black and White Zone 7. I have just brought him back. The chandelier above glimmered, and after his words, the atmosphere grew strangely silent. A sudden blast erupted right before Alfredo, yet he remained calm, unmoving. The woman raised her hand, a magical circle still active. Zone 7, you say? She seemed consumed with fury, firing questions rapidly. Is Damien all right? Is he injured? If anything happened to my son, even a single strand of hair. Alfredo's voice was steady and reassuring. Madam, please calm yourself and hear me out first. After listening to the full report, the woman finally settled into her chair, calm once more. So that is how it is. She withdrew her magic and exhaled in relief. Really? Alfredo stood quietly amidst the residual chaos. Yes. Relief indeed, he thought to himself. Good for the lady, and good for anyone who might have touched the young lord. This woman was Damien's mother, Madame Gammo, once known as the Blood Witch. Her fury was something no one could withstand. It was obvious, any mother would lose her composure if her son were involved. A smile appeared on her face. Well, it seems the outcome is fortunate. Regardless, you have worked hard. Alfredo bowed respectfully. It is nothing. It is my duty. Yet he sensed something unusual. Madame Gammo furrowed her brow. Unusual? She inquired cautiously. You mean the friend the young lord has befriended this time? Asta, correct. Is there something about this friend? Alfredo narrowed his eyes, a dangerous glint within them. He had sensed my presence even before I appeared, already prepared to counterattack. He recalled the magical strike Asta had prepared. The mana condensed into a spiraling circle around the palm. Examining it closely, Alfredo confirmed it. When we face each other, that thing in the boy's hand is a mana bullet. Madame Gammo stroked her chin, impressed. Unquestionably. A remarkable talent. A child capable of such power, and from Black and White Zone. Suddenly, Alfredo's lips moved slightly, his gaze firm. That is why, madam. His expression turned serious. I dare to make a request. The next morning, sunlight poured down, highlighting the grandeur and solemnity of the entire mansion. Alfredo's entire being seemed to radiate with excitement as he proposed, come, become the heir. Asta, just opening his eyes, heard the offer and could only stare in stunned silence for several seconds. Alfredo's heart bloomed with elation. Surprised, or not you, but there is no way the boy would refuse. A personal offer from a steward of a prestigious house, an opportunity to change a stray child's life, glory, wealth, fame. But the response that came from Asta made him freeze. No. Alfredo was completely shocked, dumbfounded. What? He glanced toward Asta, who was casually picking at his ear, seemingly pondering the meaning of life. Did you just say that, boy? Did I hear wrong? Damien poked his head in, eyes wide, his face full of curiosity. What the hell is that, friend? Thank you very much for the offer to become the heir of the family steward, Asta said, bowing slightly. But I think I still prefer my current life. He covered his mouth with his hand as he spoke, a silent check for Damien, then glanced sideways. Once again, I truly appreciate it. Alfredo's curiosity did not fade immediately, but he soon grasped the reason for the refusal. So that is why. He observed the two young men, thinking to himself, born in the gray zone, empty-handed from the start, self-taught in magic through innate talent. Because of the silent exchange with Damien, the two of them communicated with just a glance. Asta's cold gaze flicked toward Damien. I did not say what the hell, he noted, and Damien's annoyed glare confirmed. You did. Alfredo's mind wandered as he studied them, and he realized, that must be why this boy is so arrogant. I understand now. I, too, was once an unknown, wild person without limits. Then he spoke gently, but, kid, the world is vast. Asta replied bluntly, I know it is not small. Seeing that Asta showed no trace of fear, Alfredo's patience began to wane. Right now, you might think you can do anything, touch the entire world. But Asta remained calm, choosing his words sparingly. Not exactly. Although veins bulged on Alfredo's forehead and heat seemed to radiate from his head, he forced himself to stay composed. Be patient. You have to learn to be patient. He tried to maintain a friendly tone, offering an example meant to instill caution. Have you ever heard of elves living in narrow mountain valleys? That is your current situation. Born and raised in the crevice of a mountain, unaware of how frightening the outside world could be, Asta simply scratched his ear and smirked. His face remained completely unbothered. I think I feel more like a dragon king in the sky. A sharp tearing sound cut through the air. A stomp dented the ground beneath them. This kid does not understand anything. Alfredo's form gradually enlarged, towering over the scene. Then, I, a steward, will personally show you. His face twisted in a grimace, angered as if someone had stolen his grain, projecting authority to intimidate. The world is vast and terrifying beyond measure. Sunlight gradually streamed across the grand castle. One massive, one smaller, their faces cold as stone, they strode into the castle with imposing confidence. Everyone in the palace, hearing the unusual commotion outside the doors, turned to look. Immediately, without any need for coordination, everyone lined up neatly, bowing in unison. Greetings, Grand Steward. Having already demonstrated his authority in this place, he assumed a solemn posture, projecting an air of gravitas. How do you find it, kid? He asked. All of them were roughly your age, yet they were the legitimate prodigies of the Blandor family. Surely, you can feel some of it, right? Despite having gone this far, Asta's response remained indifferent, detached. At moments like this, a flicker of caution ran through his thoughts. The Blandor family was no joke. Asta's eyes briefly swept over the young men standing before him. It is unbelievable that they are still teenagers, he thought. Though their aura was subtle, it already permeated the entire room. Still, Asta offered a slight smile, as though seeing straight through their act. Looking into their eyes, he judged them easily, just a bunch of petty tricksters. His assessment proved correct. Their eyes offered no warmth, no goodwill. Turning to Alfredo, Asta said, "Yeah, I do sense something." The man's face lit up as if he would struck gold, eagerly pressing. "So you will accept my offer then?" Emboldened, he went on. "If you inherit from me, you will shine just like them, no, even brighter than anyone else." Suddenly, Asta spun on his heel and spoke with a cold finality, as if dousing him with ice water. "I hate the spotlight." Alfredo froze, his mouth tight. "The kid." A hand rose abruptly. "Grand Steward." A young man with a mole under his eye stepped forward, a faint smirk playing at his lips. "An apprentice," he said, "do you have something to say?" Confidently, he voiced his thoughts. If that boy truly sensed anything, he would not have refused the offer. But judging by the way he flatly rejected it, I would say he has not even begun to take in enough. Asta regarded him calmly, expression unreadable. "If permitted, I would like to give him an experience." The man asked again, "You want a spar?" He shrugged, smug. "Not exactly a duel, just a taste of what magic really is." Alfredo observed him from head to toe, silently assessing. Arrogant, but not bad. Then, his expression softened with a hint of humor as he turned back to Asta. "Kid, what do you think? How about a simple match with him?" Asta sank into his own thoughts. "I know exactly how they see me, a thorn in their side." To the untrained eye, the others laughed and chatted cheerfully, but deep down, they were devils wearing human masks. That beggar who lucked into their midst, no one knew where he came from. But surely they thought so. Asta pointed forward at Alfredo and asked, "Can I choose my opponents? Let us see what you have got." Without hesitation, he then pointed decisively at the person who had suggested this little game. "You." Thinking one opponent would suffice, he continued pointing at several more, leaving even Alfredo standing nearby momentarily stunned. You, and you as well. I will take on all 5 of you at once." Just hearing that, the initial smug, self-satisfied expression on their faces vanished, replaced by surprise and 3 silent question marks floating in the air. Asta flicked a few fingers provocatively, his gaze and voice colder than ever. "Scared, then die." Though merely an observer, Alfredo could feel the chill in Asta's aura and found himself breaking out in a nervous sweat. Then a smile slowly formed on his face. He burst into laughter, clearly proud. Yes, that is the kind of spirit a true successor should have. Satisfied with Asta's composure but mindful of safety, he added a cautionary note. "Kid, are you willing to take responsibility for that statement? Such words are almost an insult to the Blandor family." Asta only smiled. I will take responsibility. Hearing that firm declaration, Alfredo quickly signaled for the challenge to begin. Good, then let us start. 1 minute. If you can hold out for a full minute, I will give you a reward. If not, you will face the consequences. Hearing the rules, Asta immediately understood Alfredo's intent. Consequences probably mean inheriting the steward position. This old man is clearly trying to pull me in. Fine. I will play along. After a brief moment of preparation, Asta found himself alone on the arena floor, facing all 5 opponents. The crowd around them was growing denser by the second. One bystander approached Alfredo cautiously. Grand Steward, is not this dangerous? Alfredo's expression remained calm, resolute. It is precisely because it is dangerous that it is worth it. His stubbornness must be broken before he can grow. Those standing nearby could not help but look up in awe. Suddenly, Alfredo ground his teeth and turned away, eyes tightly shut, thinking to himself, this is not good. If the young man gets injured, the career of a trainer under my charge would be ruined. When he opened his eyes again, he noticed Damien and Lancy had also arrived. Seeing this, he bent slightly and whispered to Damien, young master, your friend is truly in danger. Please, stop the steward. One might think this could prevent disaster, but Damien's eyes lit up like twin suns, his heart blooming with excitement. Even Asta, witnessing it, could not help but be a little surprised. Seeing this, he rubbed his forehead helplessly. Oh, come on. Standing nearby, Lancy reminded him, if young master gets involved, Lady Gamma will fly into a rage. You better be careful. Damien crossed his arms, pouted, and turned his face away, muttering under his breath, damn it. The match still had not started after what felt like an eternity. Alfredo glanced over and subtly nudged the trainer. Coach, what are you waiting for? Start already. Reluctantly, he had no choice but to follow the command. Yes. Got it. Meanwhile, Damien was receiving Lancy's usual tirade about staying out of trouble. The trainer sighed, feeling utterly powerless, a quiet line of tears tracing down his face. Damn it. I have done all I can. Lancy noticed the trainer's helpless expression. She turned and left Damien with a single warning, I will be back soon. Do not interfere. Her face, which had earlier carried an apologetic look, now shifted into a mischievous smirk. All right. Standing between the two sides, the trainer announced the rules of the match. I will explain the structure, the battle will proceed in turns. Before he could finish, Asta interrupted impatiently from outside. No, let us make it a free-for-all. Though not entirely pleased, the trainer had no choice but to comply. Fine, whatever. Regaining his most neutral expression, the trainer continued. All right, then. The match will be a free-for-all, lasting until one side surrenders. However, the coach may stop the match at any time. Remember that. With the rules explained, Asta's gaze turned sharply toward his opponents, fully focused and ready for the fight about to unfold. The 5 opponents were tense as well. One of them ground his teeth, a face full of disdain. A nobody with tattered clothes. The young master and the steward may pity you, but who do you think you are? I will crush you and expose your true face in front of everyone. The trainer's firm command rang out. Begin. No sooner had he finished than Asta struck with a single blow to the stomach. Tears and saliva flew everywhere as the first opponent's eyes went wide in shock, mouth agape from the pain. He glanced back at his teammates behind him. The remaining 4 were writhing on the ground in agony, little better off than him. Looking at the boy in front of him, he began to hesitate. Even so, Asta's aura remained unchanged, his gaze and smile were the same, steady and unfaltering. Looks like I will have to teach you a lesson myself. First rule, never underestimate the weak. What caught his attention most was the magic in Asta's hands. Panic filled him. Magic. A mana bullet. The basics of mana control were simple but exhausting. Such a spell would consume a lot of energy and normally could not be used freely in battle. Asta's cold voice cut through the tension. Second rule, do not judge others too easily. With a flick of his hand, the spell shot toward all 5 opponents simultaneously. It struck them squarely on the head, causing each of them to scream in pain. His eyes were now full of sheer terror. Rule 3. He lunged straight at him, pressing his face so close it nearly touched, fists poised in parallel. He said, "This world is vast and bitter," leaving the other frozen in place. Then, without hesitation, Asta swung a decisive, brutal punch that smashed into his face and sent him flying backward. When he finished, Asta offered a cold bit of mercy. "From now on, I will pour all these lessons into you. Learn properly." After receiving a round of Asta's instruction, the kid lay ruined from head to toe, holding one side of his face and screaming, "You lunatic, this is not magic." Asta only replied, and with one foot planted he pushed off for another strike. He followed with an unrelenting blow that shattered the poor kid's jaw. This was martial magic in action. The coach's eyes went wide, jaw dropped in astonishment. Everyone else watching from the sidelines, though uncoordinated, shared the exact same expression. On the arena floor, the battle was fiercely intense for Asta. His limbs moved constantly, without a moment to rest. One hand grabbed an opponent's shirt while his foot pummeled another, all while a sly, mischievous grin played across his face. Even Alfredo could not hide his surprise at Asta's power. He thought to himself, that is mana bullets thrown 4 or 5 times in a row. Given the force, they must have been condensed at least 4 times. He imagined the scenario if those mana bullets had landed, if they really had hit just now. Alfredo was lost in thought, realizing that this was innate mana control. Not only that, the coach dashed past him, his face lighting up as if he had discovered gold. He pictured the scene. Asta, alone, utterly obliterating 5 young devils, and could not help but wonder how could he be so skilled with his fists and feet. Suddenly, a sharp call startled him, "Alfredo." He immediately turned toward the voice. Lancy was walking up, and a few steps ahead stood Lady Gammo. Alfredo instinctively raised his voice slightly, "Lady Gammo." Seeing Alfredo speaking privately with her, it was clear. Lady Gammo had arrived. Like a lifeline, the coach's tears silently ran down his face, nodding at Lancy. "Lady Gammo is here to save us," she nodded back, reassuring the coach. Her gaze stern, Lady Gammo demanded to know what had happened. Alfredo bowed and stammered, "I was only attempting a simple test." She raised an eyebrow. "A test?" Seeing the battlefield Asta had created and noticing him grabbing another student by the collar, she said, "You call this a test?" Focused on his actions, Asta froze when he heard a familiar authoritative voice call out, "Damien." His heart skipped a beat. Finally, she gave her orders. "First, gather the students and allow them to retreat." Alfredo placed a hand over his chest and bowed in agreement. To Damien, she said, "Damien, go back to your room first." The mischievous look he had just now vanished. Facing his mother, he scratched his head and put on an innocent, guiltless expression. Asta was no exception. She said, "You too, Asta, return to your room." She then walked up to the coach, who trembled slightly and bowed, sweat already beading on his face. Runfit spoke up, "Yes, Lady Gammo, I have done my best." 4 words escaped her lips, "You are dismissed." Asta froze in shock. "What?" In the Grand Palace, Lady Gammo's voice rang out again, "Alfredo." "Yes, madam," he replied. She stood holding a teacup, her gaze sharp yet composed, and addressed the butler, "I understand your intentions, but this time you have gone too far." Without hesitation, Alfredo bowed deeply, sincere. "I apologize, madam. I accept any punishment you deem necessary." Lady Gammo set her teacup down, but her questioning continued. "I heard Asta had a sparring session with the students. Did Damien assist him?" Alfredo answered calmly, "No, he was alone." "It is just that." He paused at the crucial moment, prompting her to press, "Just that." Recalling the scene with a proud, self-satisfied grin, he continued, "He is exceptionally skilled at striking and combat. And, regarding the mana bullets I mentioned earlier, he also used them in today's sparring." His tone lowered, gravely serious. "What is more, he condensed them 4 or 5 times to amplify their power. That alone proves." From his explanation, Lady Gammo gradually pieced it together. Asta possessed extraordinary control over mana. Even without witnessing everything firsthand, she realized that a single mana bullet had allowed him to defeat 5 students simultaneously. She recalled the sight of him standing confidently amid the defeated students, each sprawled in a corner. Even a high-level mage would struggle to control that kind of mana precisely, she thought. She continued, "And what about the inheritance offer?" Alfredo answered frankly. He declined, without hesitation. Hearing this, Lady Gamma raised her teacup and said, I understand. She took a sip, mulling over the situation. Perhaps I need to reevaluate Asta. After a moment, she instructed Alfredo. Call Asta here. Soon after, the door opened, and Asta strode in confidently. On the sofa, Damien puffed his cheeks, eyes wide, holding a pastry. When he saw Asta, he raised a hand in greeting. Beside him, Lady Gamma smiled warmly. Asta, you have arrived. Please, have a seat. Asta sat down without preamble, going straight to the point. I hear you summoned me. Correct. Before he could say more, Lady Gamma pushed a small box toward him. Asta looked at it. This. He recalled Alfredo had promised a reward. If he survived a 1-minute challenge, a gift would be given. What surprised him now was how quickly it had arrived and that it had come from Lady Gamma herself. Maintaining her friendly smile, she said, You may open it. Asta picked up the box and slowly lifted the lid. The moment he lifted the lid, a soft glow emanated from the box. What is this? Inside lay a golden gem, and Asta's eyes widened in surprise. This was a high-tier item so rare that even within the Blandor family, only students ranked among the top 5 divisions of the Mage Corps would ever receive such a gift. He cast a cautious glance at Lady Gamma, skeptical. I am not sure. Normally, acts of kindness stop at a simple meal. If there is a gift, there must be some meaning behind it. If this were a reward for surviving a wager, a mid-tier item would make sense, but this is high tier. Lady Gamma's expression shifted, as if she had realized something. She reached out to ruffle Damien's hair and said, You may accept it without worry. You helped Damien back in the Grey region, and this gift is also an apology for what happened today. Though reassured, Asta's suspicion lingered. Wait, if I take this, does it mean I am joining the Blandor family? Her expression remained warm and friendly. No. He pressed further. Or is there poison inside? Her eyebrows twitched slightly, her mouth flickered, but she remained composed. No. Are there any conditions attached to it? He asked. None whatsoever, she replied. Satisfied, Asta's hesitation vanished. He took the gem and closed the box. Then I will accept it. Thank you. Truly, it is nothing. Damien reached for his pastry on the table, oblivious. Asta's eyes shone as he examined the gem, mouth watering at the unexpected windfall. Just as he was about to savor the moment, Lady Gamma added, in addition. Finally, she revealed her intention. I have a proposal for you, Asta. His expression immediately turned serious, cold, as if he already knew what was coming. Lady Gamma ruffled her son's hair gently. Asta, I will arrange for you to enroll in the academy. Would you like to attend alongside Damien? Damien, initially distracted, suddenly looked up at his mother in surprise. Asta raised an eyebrow, intrigued. The academy. Lady Gamma explained, actually, Damien was supposed to enroll last year, but he strongly objected, so it was postponed until this year. I did not expect him to run away entirely, Asta thought, while Damien continued to eat his pastry, glancing elsewhere as if to ignore the conversation. She continued, so I ask you, Damien values you greatly. Damien quickly added, as long as my friend goes with me, I agree. Asta gradually pieced together her plan. It made sense. With Bianca, things had been more complicated. Forcing Damien to enroll risked another escape. Asta imagined Damien stubbornly running off, refusing to go, and realized there was no way to sway him otherwise. For Asta, however, this proposal was not a loss. On the contrary, it was an opportunity. The academy was prestigious, and in a world where bloodlines and alliances mattered, academic connections carried significant value. He clenched his teeth. It sounds promising. But it also feels like I am being shackled. He said, I will think it over. Understood. Let me know when you have made your decision. Then, as if on a different note, he added, by the way. This is not related, but I am a little curious. His tone carried a hint of surprise. Seizing the moment, she asked, why did you turn down Alfredo's offer to become his heir? Asta glanced toward the door behind him. With a sly, teasing smile, he replied, well, my knees are worth quite a lot too. Her expression twisted in confusion. Excuse me. Outside, Alfredo was pressing his ear against the door, trying desperately to eavesdrop on what was happening inside. At a certain mansion, just as dawn broke, Asta exhaled a cold breath. He sat cross-legged on the bed, practicing his magic. I see. This is a treasure's domain. Even though I have only absorbed 10%, my mana has increased so much. Asta suddenly opened his eyes and glanced downward. It must be because my body has transformed into one marked by fire. His hands rested on his lap, shrouded in mana. Normally, absorbing a domain would cause some depletion, but here, there was absolutely none, far beyond what he had anticipated. Asta gazed calmly toward the window. After all, the academy. I have been thinking about it endlessly, but perhaps the answer was already set long ago. Outside the window, the sky was slowly brightening. If he enrolled at the academy, finding support would be much easier, bringing a fair number of advantages. Yet, he turned his head with a sigh, feeling as if he were stepping straight into a trap. Or maybe I should take a walk first. After a while, Asta left the room and closed the door behind him. Suddenly, a voice called out, making him look over. Are you the one named Aster? A platinum-haired youth leaned against the wall, staring intently at Asta. Meanwhile, Asta silently assessed him. Platinum hair. Pure blood lineage only seen in Damien. So which branch is he from? Why is this family always so troublesome? A few minutes later, Asta finally spoke coolly. No. What? The platinum-haired youth flinched. You said no. He rubbed his chin, bewildered, grayish-ash-colored hair, eyes carrying a hint of annoyance. It is all you, is not it? In the blink of an eye, Asta's whole body stiffened, a red cross appearing, as he stared at the youth. Then Asta lifted a hand toward his own head, the color of his hair shifting subtly depending on the light. In the next instant, he displayed a delicate, sparkling expression. Look into these eyes. How could that be called annoying? The platinum-haired youth pursed his lips, assessing Asta with a critical gaze. But then he turned, and in Asta's eyes, his gaze seemed gentler. Sorry for the misunderstanding. I will leave immediately. At that very moment, Alfredo suddenly leapt out from somewhere, shouting, Hey, young man, no, Aster. I came to clarify the misunderstanding. I could not speak to you last night, and it kept me awake all night. He dropped to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Even as a butler, there was no need to kneel until his knees were raw. It was just a misunderstanding. Asta stared blankly at Alfredo, who was kneeling at his feet. Then he stiffly turned his gaze back to the platinum-haired youth, who had stopped moving and was now glaring at Asta. He clicked his tongue in irritation. Damn it. Then came the shout from the platinum-haired youth, those eyes. I knew it, just as I thought. Those cursed eyes are deadly, nothing ordinary about them. Asta, exasperated, finally admitted defeat. Fine, you caught me. The youth, fuming, jabbed a finger straight at him. Look at you, how dare you deceive me and remain so shameless. Gritting his teeth, the platinum-haired youth threatened, I will. But at that moment, his gaze met Alfredo's sharp, knife-like stare. Immediately, the youth fell silent, visibly annoyed, and turned his eyes elsewhere. Finally, he spun around, clenching his jaw. I will let you off today, but later. Come to the Mana Hall and find me. I will fix that attitude of yours. Asta replied calmly, fine. After the youth departed, Alfredo softened his tone and asked, what happened just now? Asta closed his eyes, smiling slightly. Nothing. He let out a disdainful laugh, his mood still sour. Actually, perfect timing. Watching the platinum-haired youths retreating back, Asta silently vowed, I will deal with him later. Then he called out, Alfredo, chief steward. Alfredo approached with a gentle smile. Yes. Asta asked carefully, may I meet with madam now? Not long after, as the morning brightened, still in the same mansion, Gammo sat at a desk with a blank sheet of paper. Welcome, Aster. She closed her eyes, smiling lightly. So, you wanted to meet me this early. Does that mean you have already made your decision? As Gammo lifted her gaze, Asta answered promptly, indeed, madam. He stood upright and continued, I will enroll in the academy. Gammo's eyes widened in surprise at his swift decision. Recovering quickly, she smiled, masking her initial astonishment. Unexpected. I did not think you would decide so quickly. Asta returned her smile. Good. Then preparations must begin immediately. Gamma reminded him kindly, in the meantime, rest comfortably. Asta inclined his head slightly. Thank you for your concern, madam. With that, Asta's figure vanished from the room, the door closing behind him. But then Alfredo suddenly peeked in, slipping the door open. He entered and spoke softly. Madam, fortunately, he agreed. In the next instant, Alfredo's entire body surged with excitement. Just as he had predicted, this is the spirit of youth, that fire blazing in his eyes. I knew it immediately. At that moment, Gamo stared at him with dead fish eyes as Alfredo continued his little performance. Suddenly, Alfredo pointed forward, eyes gleaming with excitement. The first semester will be fine, he declared proudly, since I will cover the costs. But what about the second semester? In his imagination, he pictured Asta holding a tuition bill, his face tense and worried. A wanderer from the gray-black region. How could he possibly afford such a hefty sum? He will feel uneasy. Why? Because he will want to keep studying. Within Alfredo's vivid fantasy, he extended a hand toward Asta, and in that very moment, he envisioned himself appearing with angelic wings and piles of glittering gold coins. A saving hand will descend from the heavens. None other than the benevolent patron, Alfredo. Finally, Gamo could not bear it anymore. Alfred, you are too noisy. Startled, Alfredo flinched. Ah, my apologies, I got carried away. It must be close to mealtime, I will head to the kitchen first. Gamo simply watched him leave and quietly shut the door behind him. She sighed helplessly, closing her eyes. I understand why he is so excited. He has been rejected countless times. Now that he finally sees a chance, of course he is thrilled. But then Gamo's eyes opened again, sharp and cold as steel. Still, she thought, in a sense, this whole academy proposal is nothing more than a clumsy little scheme. Yet the reason Alfredo's so confident? She shook her head faintly. It is probably because he was once tricked by the previous butler in the exact same way. Meanwhile, on the other side of the mansion, Alfredo was happily skipping down the hallway, humming to himself. Poor fool, Gamo would have thought. As for Asta, he was leisurely descending the grand staircase. Suddenly, he lifted his head. Before him loomed a towering spire that pierced the sky, the magic tower. That silver-haired branch member should be here, he thought. With that, Asta made his way inside. Out of nowhere, a cloaked figure appeared and asked, "What business do you have here?" Asta hesitated, realizing he did not even know the man's name. Right. I never asked. He resorted to describing the platinum-haired youth's appearance with gestures and words. The cloaked man seemed to understand immediately and extended his hand. Perfect timing. I have been expecting you. This way. Yawning lazily, he led Asta down a dim corridor. Stopping before a door, he said, "You can go in from here." Just as he turned to leave, he added, "Remember to lower your head when you open it." Asta slowly pushed the door open only to have a cloud of dust and parchment explode right into his face. So that is what lower your head meant. He coughed violently, waving the air clear. Then a voice called out from the darkness, "You must be Astor." A man holding a candle stepped forward. "A pleasure to meet you." In the flickering light, a sly grin spread across Henzi's face, one that reeked of mischief. "You have come to see my little brother, have not you?" Asta blinked in confusion. What? Little brother? He thought to himself, this guy is his older brother. One evening, in a high place, the main character of his previous life knelt on one knee, surveying below. If there is one thing I have learned from infiltrating magical research institutes as a mere cleaner. He cast a cold, calculating gaze downward. The courtyard he focused on was typical of a magic research institute. Desks piled high with papers, exhausted people everywhere, those he collectively called the pen pounders. One young man clutched his thinning hair in horror. First stage, thinning hair, continuously pulled and stressed, never allowed to grow back. Asta rubbed his chin, calculating mentally, breaking things down stage by stage. Another wore a hooded cloak, stage 1, denial, hiding his baldness beneath fabric. Yet another bared a partially shaved head, stage 2, surrender, exposing the scalp. Then there was the one with a completely bald head, stage 3. Fully shaven, nothing left. Finally came the maddened spellcaster, stage 4, the final phase, experimenting to make the impossible possible, attempting a spell that could regrow hair. No one had succeeded. Returning to the present, Asta studied Henzi in front of him carefully. But this one was different. Henzi casually poured tea and said leisurely, "First, allow me to apologize." He went on to explain calmly, "I am the youngest in the family, overly spoiled, yet I did not expect to be so rude to a guest." Asta listened, frozen, absorbing every word. Henzi maintained a polite smile, and Asta thought to himself, impressive. And still so young. Asta suddenly spoke, "You must be working at a magical research institute." Without hesitation, Henzi admitted, "Indeed. I am currently the vice director." "Please, have some tea." Asta took a sip, impressed. A vice director at his age, in a noble family like Blando, such a position would not be given merely by lineage. Clearly, Henzi's abilities justified his rank. Noticing Asta's expression, Henzi's smile deepened. He closed his eyes, his voice carrying a subtle weight. "Asta, you are extraordinary. You are nothing like the wandering types from the gray zone." Asta could only smile wryly, thinking, damn it. If he had come in with caution, this would have been much easier. Instead, he appeared so benign, so gentle. Watching Henzi sip his tea, Asta thought to himself, his personality fits mine. Suddenly, Henzi spoke again. "Ah, you have been invited to enroll in Zenyan Academy, have not you? Congratulations." Asta forced a faint smile and replied curtly. Henzi continued, "It is a great opportunity, much to learn. Actually, I am also a former Zenyan student, class 145. Asta thought, so suddenly trying to establish an alumni connection like that. Henzi laughed, rubbing his head. "Sorry, I got carried away hearing you were entering Zenyan. Let us get straight to the point." Asta frowned in suspicion. "The point?" Setting down his teacup, Henzi's expression turned serious. "Before anything else, there is something I need to confirm." He fixed his sharp gaze on Asta. "Are you willing to risk your life for your friends?" Asta froze, furrowing his brow. "What?" Henzi suddenly used a summoning spell to bring forth a book, the fate of the Blando family hanging by a thread, asking whether one was willing to sacrifice their life. He placed it before Asta, who stared in shock. I am being handed this book," he thought, odd. It was a thick tome, bathed in a radiant aura of mana, the secret core technique of the Blando family, the saint scripture of luminous healing. Meanwhile, in a greenhouse filled with blooming flowers, Gammo quietly snipped at the fresh blossoms. Suddenly, the scissors in her hand paused mid-air. She lifted her gaze, then exhaled softly. "The matter of Damien's enrollment, which once troubled me so, has finally been settled without incident. At least one less worry." Outside, under the blue sky, a flock of birds soared freely. Asta. That child is a true friend, she thought. Gammo recalled the image of Asta just now, impressive talent, good character, and according to Alfredo, occasionally reckless or rather, daring, but that was to be expected at his age. She closed her eyes and smiled gently. "What I appreciate most." The vision of Damien happily by Asta's side flashed in her mind. Even knowing Damien's background, Asta maintained consistent behavior, without a trace of flattery. Gammo's eyes shifted thoughtfully. He is different, which makes him worth keeping close. But precisely because of that. A white bird spread its wings toward the sky, its cage left wide open. He will belong nowhere, like a free bird. She sighed softly. There are many ways to keep someone by your side. I will consider them carefully. At that moment, Asta's slightly flustered expression appeared in her thoughts. I cannot let such talent slip away, not for Damien's future. Asta stared at the book before him, still in disbelief. The Blando family's secret scripture. They are actually giving it to me. He lifted his gaze to Henzi, cold and calculating. What is he truly hiding? Yet Henzi's blue eyes remained calm, transparent and pure, perhaps that very purity hiding all intent. His face bore a gentle smile that revealed nothing. Asta frowned, irritation flickering across his features. Usually, even the faintest emotion shows in the eyes, whether good or evil, but not Henzi. He was like a detached assassin. Now, his smile stretched to his eyes, while Asta continued to speculate. Henzi wore a mask so complete, perhaps even he did not fully know who he truly was. Then Henzi spoke, his voice measured. I am not saying this lightly. Do not rush your answer merely because of the reward before you. Asta smirked, a hint of disdain in his expression. I will give you an answer. Asta muttered to himself inwardly, now I understand. That uneasy feeling has vanished. He let out a soft laugh and spoke aloud, I refuse. Henzi's eyes widened in surprise at the answer. Asta stretched his legs leisurely and continued, you and I come from the same swamp, so there is no need for pretense. All right, if there is anything you wish to ask, just say it. Crossing his arms arrogantly, Asta added, if it is something I can do, I will. If not, then forget it. At that moment, Henzi's composed smile vanished. Even just hearing those words carried the weight of death. If, after hearing this, you still refuse, I am afraid I will have to kill you, Asta. Asta narrowed his eyes, a spark of provocation in them. Then go ahead and kill me. I have only got one life, does it matter if I die a second time? He paused, thought for a moment, then muttered wryly, ah no. It is actually me who has died twice already, is not it? In the next instant, a whirlwind erupted. A surge of mana radiated from Henzi, sending papers flying in every direction across the room. Even the teacup on the table trembled violently. Henzi furrowed his brows, unleashing a wave of potent mana, directing it toward the calmly seated Asta. Yet suddenly, he burst out laughing. He withdrew the mana, rubbing his head. Truly remarkable, Asta. You have passed the test. After a brief pause, Henzi continued in a measured tone, let me be blunt. I need someone I can trust, but absolutely not someone from the Blando family. Asta frowned, thinking to himself. At first, he had almost unleashed a full-strength punch. Henzi's lips curved into a smile as he added, honestly, I did not expect much. The wanderers from the gray zone are all the same. The young master is still too young, perhaps not even perceptive enough to judge people. Suddenly, visions of Gamo and Damien flickered before Asta's eyes. Yet for the lady who had always cared so deeply for her young master, allowing a mere wanderer to linger nearby would never do. Ah, there is a reason for this, Asta thought. At just the right moment, he finished his words, my younger brother stirred trouble with our guest, did not he? Henzi remained silent for a moment, then said, Asta, choose informal or formal. One of the two. Asta replied with a casual shrug, fine. Let us do it that way. Henzi let out a few awkward coughs, trying to smooth things over. Anyway, at least now I have a convenient excuse. My younger brother picked a fight with you. So as his elder brother, I had to summon you for a proper talk. Sounds reasonable enough, does not it? Asta raised an eyebrow, thinking silently, reasonable, sure. But a deputy director of a magical research institute needs to use his troublemaking brother as an excuse just to call someone in. Something about this does not add up. As if reading his doubts, Henzi continued, yes, your suspicion is correct. For me, taking the initiative is complicated. Do not misunderstand. This is not some kind of internal conflict. The Blando family is, by nature, a tightly knit one. He stopped abruptly, and the smile on his face vanished. Then, with a grave expression, he admitted, it is just that I am currently under surveillance by the Dakulin family. Asta's eyes narrowed in disbelief. What, Dakulin? He spoke bluntly. Why? Henzi replied immediately, you said you do not fear death, so I will speak plainly. I have no intention of killing you, Asta, but the truth is, I am currently researching Dakulin's Tianyuan technique. It seems they have found out. Asta's eyes widened in shock. Henzi, however, chuckled lightly as if confessing to something trivial. You know of the Tianyuan technique, do not you? A secret art that only those with Dakulin blood can wield. I happened to seize it from one of their members and... But before he could finish, Asta raised a hand sharply. Hold on. He glared at Henzi. Someone who was supposed to be long dead, how is he still alive? If the Blando family had been studying that technique, they would surely also be researching countermeasures against it, would not they? Henzi merely smiled. You are sharp, as expected. True, Dakulin was careless. But if I were only studying countermeasures, then even I as deputy director would have found a way to eliminate them by now. The truth is, I started out researching ways to resist their art. But the deeper I dug, the more I discovered something else. He narrowed his eyes and asked quietly, "You have not realized it yet, have you?" Asta's mind flashed with the image of Farron and the ominous spellbook Tianyuan technique, the supposed root of all Dakulan magic. By now, Henzi was trembling with excitement, clutching the front of his shirt over his chest. There are still ways to refine it to perfect what was once thought perfect. He looked straight into Asta's eyes and declared with feverish intensity, "I could not stop myself, Asta. You understand that feeling, do not you?" Asta just stared at him, speechless, his expression stiff. Good God, he thought, this guy is not just insane, he is completely gone. Every word he spoke was emphasized, unstoppable in its intensity. Asta, you understand how I feel, do not you? At that moment, Asta's mind swirled with suspicion. This was not ordinary madness. Henzi was actually researching that very technique within his own family. He still could not grasp the full reason. Wait, he thought. Then the timing aligns perfectly. In his previous life, when the Dakulan family annihilated the Blandor clan, the entire catastrophe had revolved around Henzi's research on the Tianyuan technique, the new Tianyuan technique. Asta recalled everything he could, the name Paharan flashing in his memory. That bastard had risked the entire fate of Dakulan to crush Blandor over this very matter. From the very beginning, he realized the truth. Henzi had seen the potential of the new Tianyuan technique from the start. He began piecing together the reason why Henzi had become so terrifyingly strong. Lost in thought, a voice suddenly called out, "Asta." Asta lifted his gaze, refocusing. Henzi's tone now carried a note of suspicion. "Do you regret it already?" "Yes. It does require a larger scale." Asta scratched his head, tired, and muttered, "Forget it. Why exactly did you seek me out?" Henzi mentioned his own concern. "First, I have not reported the Tianyuan research to the family yet." Asta's mind raced. He guessed there must be spies embedded somewhere within the Blandor family, though he could not identify them. Narrowing his eyes, he got straight to the point. "If the secret is leaked, would not you suspect someone, maybe a secretary?" Henzi took a sip of tea and shook his head firmly. "No. More precisely, it relates to the collection route." Asta continued to assess the situation. If they traced the collection route, someone must have intentionally leaked the security plan. Henzi nodded in agreement. "Exactly. The moment I realized my trace had been discovered, I deployed a counterplan to handle the security breach. I did not want to die, either." Asta smirked wryly, offering an alternative. "Would not joining Dakulan have been easier? They would have welcomed you." Henzi remained calm. "Let us say I had personal reasons." Then he presented his request. "Asta, since you are not directly tied to the family, I need you to handle this matter in complete secrecy." He let the scattered documents drift through the air. The research was technically a joint project, but Henzi's portion had not progressed well. He held the papers firmly and assured, "I will make sure you are fairly compensated." He then pushed the documents toward Asta with instructions. "Deliver this thesis to Professor Farron at the Zenyan Academy. Along with the condition," Henzi added, "after that, I will grant you the light healing technique." Asta grinned, clearly pleased. "This is my chance." Without hesitation, he nodded firmly. "Very well." Asta leaned in, putting forth an additional condition. "I accept the light healing technique, but I also want the complete new Tianyuan technique later. Only then can we truly be allies sharing the same ship, right? One more gamble." Henzi's voice carried a note of exasperation. "Asta, you really have no shame." Asta cut straight to the point. "Just say yes or no. If not, I won't accept." Finally, Henzi relented. "Very well. The new Tianyuan technique name does not matter. Since you have not studied the Tianyuan technique yet, it is useless for now, but I will give you the complete version later." Henzi ran a hand through his hair, adding one more point. "However, I have one condition. Until this thesis is completed, I may need your help, Asta. When that time comes, I hope you will lend a hand. If we are truly in the same boat, you should at least be able to do that, right?" Asta did not hesitate to agree. "No problem. If it concerns the thesis, I will help. Although I can't read. He then took the stack of documents. Suddenly, Henzi chuckled. Just kidding. Not only shameless but also boring. Huh? Asta frowned in curiosity. By the way, Professor Farron, is he reliable? Henzi's pride shone through as he boasted. From the time I was a student to being a teaching assistant, we always competed for first and second place. Unfortunately, the competition ended when I returned to the Blandor family. Asta thought to himself, inwardly reflecting. Still, I am the superior one. Or is that just my illusion? A wave of annoyance washed over him. Professor Farron. This world is doomed. And now the academy has another madman like this. Under the bright moonlight above the castle, books and letters had been tossed into a chaotic pile. Asta frowned at the mess, quickly slipping everything into his space pocket to avoid detection, but there was still far too much. Then he noticed a single letter. Opening it, he read the contents, "To my dear friend, Astor." He narrowed his eyes, a smirk tugging at his lips. Seriously. The letter spoke with unwavering trust in Asta. I have selected the magical tomes you need to master for your future. I have even written the order of study below. Study diligently, so you may cultivate the intellect worthy of your potential. At the end of the letter, a name was clearly signed, your friend, Henzi von Blando. Asta could not help but sigh in amusement. Now this really is quite the gift. He picked up one of the books, flipping it open. Inwardly, he could not help but admire it, a fully structured curriculum of magical theory arranged from the fundamentals to the advanced levels. This guy's a genius. And an absolute lunatic, he thought. A smile tugged at his lips. Good. Asta slammed a sheet of paper and a pen down onto the table. He quickly scribbled a few lines. Funding list Henzi von Blando. Turning to the stack of books, he calculated carefully. Let us see. Excluding the light healing technique and the new Tianyuan thesis, there are about 132 volumes left. Placing the light healing scripture in the tower for public viewing is another issue altogether. I will have to discuss that with Damien later. Asta nodded to himself, satisfied. You could call that a friend's privilege. Then, as he looked closer, understanding dawned on him. Wait. Those 132 books Henzi gave me, they are not just random volumes. Together, they form an entire system. He understood perfectly how it worked. If such a system were completed, then anyone who wished to learn magic could use it as a foundation. He began drafting a new plan. Yes. Before, I only thought about storing books in the tower, but now, under the night sky, in an ancient tower, his vision became clear. It would become the very identity of the tower itself, a place that bestows knowledge upon those who crave it. Asta could not help but look forward to the results. It was an unexpected harvest, a reward beyond his expectations. Meanwhile, Henzi stood by the window, deep in thought. At first, he mused, if he proved useful, I planned to let him deliver the thesis. If not, I would exploit him and toss him aside. He drew back the curtain, eyes glinting faintly. But Astor. He is interesting. A strange smile spread across his face. More than that. He recalled Asta's expression, cold, determined, defiant. Kill him, huh? Whether it is once or twice, what difference does it make? Henzi burst out laughing, clutching his stomach. Kill him? Did he really want me to kill him? It was just a threat to test him. Yet, come to think of it, I have no real reason not to. His laughter faded into a thoughtful hum. He felt a flicker of caution now. That light Asta's conviction, it was not just words. The man truly did not care about dying. The more Henzi thought about it, the more intrigued he became. He is different from those swine. Genuinely fascinating. A strange satisfaction filled him. Yes. He hides a lot, but that only makes it better. I have found an ally who can stand beside me, someone who looks toward the same horizon. And above all, he desires the results of my research. What a refreshing feeling. There was, however, one thing that genuinely bothered him. Did that man truly not know how to read? Henzi's expression remained doubtful. No way. Impossible. There is absolutely no way. Sunlight poured through the towering windows of the castle. Asta was rolling up his sleeves, getting ready. A large bag sat by the corner. A voice transmission came through. Lord Astor, it is time to depart. He picked up a suitcase and slung it over his shoulder. A young woman arrived to give a brief rundown. Once you arrive at the academy, there will be a few minor administrative procedures. Incidentally, both the young master and Lord Astor are exempt from the entrance examination. She turned back with a polite smile. Someone beside her remarked admiringly, "Still, you really do look like a proper academy student now, my lord." "It suits you." Asta gave a curt nod. "Thank you." The woman gestured toward the carriage. "Let us go." Asta followed, thoughts tumbling in his mind. Exempt from the exam, typical of noble families. Basically a direct admission. Well, not that I am complaining. Then a familiar voice called out, "My friend." Damien was waving enthusiastically from the distance. "Hurry up, come on." Gamo, standing beside him, offered a few last words. "Damien, take care of yourself." "Astor." Asta nodded obediently. "Understood." She folded her hands together, sincere in her wish. "This is a great opportunity. I truly hope you achieve wonderful results." He smiled back. "Thank you." And with that, he began walking forward. "The results I seek. Of course, they are all part of my plan." He had already set his goal. The greatest academy in the eastern continent, Zenyan. There, countless sponsors and powerful figures awaited, and he would seize every single one of them. Asta could not hide his anticipation. "Just you wait. You fools know, my dear classmates, here I come." The carriage began to roll slowly along the dusty dirt road. Inside, Damien's eyes gleamed with childlike excitement, glued to the window as he eagerly took in the passing scenery. In contrast, Asta maintained his usual composed demeanor. He lightly closed the book in his hands. "I understand now." A thoughtful gleam flickered in Asta's eyes. Henzi truly was an extraordinary mage. The basic principles of magic were simple, yet the ways to interpret and apply them were limitless. He pictured it in his mind, using water as an example. To one person, it was the water of life, the origin of growth. To another, it could be the water of disaster, floods that swept everything away. In short, differences depended entirely on perspective. Even when using the same principle, noble families could develop in vastly different ways according to their own interpretations. Now, having read through all the magic manuals stored in the subspace, Asta could clearly feel this truth. He could even surmise that Henzi's curriculum had a connection to the Tianyuan technique of the Dakulin family. At that moment, Damien's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. "Hey, look over here." The boy's face lit up like a blooming flower. "We are here." Before them, the towering structure of Zenyan Academy loomed against the pale blue sky. The massive gates bore an imposing emblem, ivory-white walls stretched along in classical grandeur, and the carriage sped along the stone-paved road, leaving a swirling cloud of dust in its wake. Asta glanced out with only a brief flicker of surprise. "So this is Zenyan Academy." Lancy, sitting nearby, finally spoke. "The carriage only brings you this far. As the first Grand Sage once decreed, all students must walk into the academy themselves during the entrance ceremony, regardless of their status." She smiled warmly, offering her well wishes. "We will part ways here. I hope your entrance goes smoothly, and may you gain invaluable lessons along the way." After seeing the two of them off, the carriage turned back, Damien waving cheerfully in farewell. Suddenly, he grabbed Asta's arm, urging him forward. "Come on, we have to hurry." His excitement was palpable. Lancy called out a warning, "If you are late, you might not get a seat." Asta frowned in confusion, not fully understanding. Before he could process it, Damien had already dragged him along. "What the hell? The entrance ceremony is not some village theater where you claim a seat just because you got here first." Asta suddenly remembered something. "Wait, Lancy said that, right?" She must have planned this so Damien would not dawdle. In the end he decided to let it go. "Fine. I will let this one slide. She is straightforward, sure, but she is not shameless, absolutely not, for convenience's sake." Inside the hall where the opening ceremony took place, noise and chatter filled the air. Other students were already seated, chattering and making introductions. Sunlight poured through the glass panes, spreading across the room and reflecting off the central podium. Rosa's seats rose up in tiers around it, lending the space a formal, orderly air. Damien's eyes widened as he looked around, excitement in his voice. So many people. He peered this way and that, face practically glowing like a kid. He did not even notice his mouth was watering from excitement. Lancey was not wrong. If we were late, there really would not be any seats left. Asta pressed his forehead with one hand in exasperation. No, that was not it. He reached into his pocket, rifled around, and pulled out a sheet of paper. He scanned it, then looked for their spot. All right, class M3, seats 11 and 12. As he was locating their seats, Damien nervously hurried over and asked, "Hey, can I sit over there? If I do not sit now, the seats might be taken." Asta stayed calm and said, "Hold on." For a second a bit of irritation rose in him. God, did not you refuse to enroll before? Why are you so excited now? Suddenly Damien bumped into someone and tumbled to the floor. He looked up, puzzled. Standing above him was a huge student, broad-shouldered, face dark and scowling down. He glared and said sharply, "What is with you?" Asta stepped forward to help Damien up. "Are you okay?" Damien scratched his head and grinned innocently. "I am fine." After he stood, Damien walked off, waving a little apologetic smile. "I just accidentally bumped into you, sorry." A few steps later, the student who'd been hit called out in a low voice, "Wait." He held up his sleeve, showing a smear. What did you get on my coat?" Asta looked at the stain and felt a flash of recognition. Spit. Probably the offspring of some noble family. In this situation, Damien would. No sooner had the thought crossed his mind than Damien eagerly stepped forward, lightly licked his finger, and bent down to rub the smear off the other student's hand. "Sorry, I will wipe it for you." He said it with a proud little flourish, like he would just achieved something heroic. "See, it is getting shiny. I will keep going until it is brighter than ever." The big student's face darkened and his jaw twitched with anger. Watching that expression, Asta sighed inwardly. This is going to turn into a fight. Anger surged to its peak. The student swung his fist violently toward Damien, growling, "Let go, you fool." He ground his teeth as he spat out each word. "Hey, student." It seemed like the punch would land, but at that very moment, another hand shot out and blocked it. Asta had stepped up just in time, intercepting the blow. "Better to stop it here." The student's face darkened, and he clenched his fists to suppress the rage boiling inside. "Who are you?" Asta opened his mouth to answer. "I am," but Damien eagerly cut in, "He is my friend." Asta continued smoothly, "Yes. A friend." The student jerked his hand away from Asta's grip, sneering. "His friend, huh, a fine friend, indeed. It is rare to see someone take a hit for their friend. But today, you are going to regret that choice." Asta let out a quiet sigh. It seemed that getting along with classmates from day one was impossible. He lightly pressed the back of his neck, conceding silently. "Fine. If you do not want to speak it out, I understand." The commotion quickly drew attention. What is going on? Are they fighting? A cluster of students gathered, whispering and speculating. "Who is that? The big guy looks like he is from the Dolanpe bloodline, but those other two, I have never seen them before." They analyzed the three by size and apparent strength. "Who do you think will win?" "Probably the Dolanpe guy. I hear the youngest in that family is fierce." Suddenly, a voice cut through, loud and challenging. "Are you kidding me?" The student gestured, questioning the bystanders. "They are already fighting, and you are just standing there watching." Another timid student asked, "Should we try to stop them?" Another nodded in agreement. "Yeah, before things get out of hand." But the loud one waved them off, pointing. "Stop them, then how can they fight?" He signaled the others to step back. "Make some space." The gray-haired student stepped forward, a mage, conjuring a barrier around the three. Immediately, the surrounding students began casting spells, their mana flaring brilliantly. In an instant, a luminous barrier enveloped the entire area, magical runes spinning in midair. A crowd had gathered, cheering. "Hickster, go. I bet on you 3 snacks, I will bet 2. "No, 3, stupid, only underdogs are worth betting on." In a corner, unnoticed, one student stood silently with arms crossed. He smirked slightly, a subtle, knowing smile playing on his lips. Inside the barrier, the Dolanpe student flexed his arms aggressively, slamming his fists together as he introduced himself. "I am Hickster, second son of the Dolanpe family." He lowered his stance into a fighting posture, his entire body radiating intense mana. His sharp gaze locked directly on Asta and Damien. "And you, what is your name?" Asta calmly loosened his tie and replied, "I do not have any noble blood like you. Just consider me a passerby." Hickster let out a derisive laugh, full of contempt. "Not a noble, does not matter. You are a mage, and in such a cramped space, that is a disadvantage. I will be generous, go ahead, you strike first." His voice rang out provocatively. "Come on, then." At first, Asta was slightly taken aback. Then he curled his lips into a faint smirk. This guy really talks too much. Decisively, he yanked at his tie, issuing a challenge. "I do not want to talk. And yet you keep jabbering. Scared, are you?" Those words were like pouring fuel on a fire. Hickster trembled with anger. He stomped his foot hard on the ground and lunged forward, growling a curse. "Bastard." Hickster's charge cut through the air like a blade, closing the distance to Asta in an instant. But Asta remained calm, composed. Hickster swung his fist with full force, yet Asta's reflexes were sharp. He tilted his body just in time to dodge the blow. The veins on Hickster's face bulged as his frustration mounted. Before he could react further, Asta's voice rang out slowly, deliberately. "There is one thing I have not told you yet." Immediately after, Asta crouched slightly, clenching his fists as mana surged violently around him. His voice emphasized each word. "Not one person, but two." With that, a single, devastating punch slammed directly into Hickster's face, drawing blood. The large figure of Hickster staggered, his balance shattered, and he fell backward, hitting the ground hard. Asta lunged forward with a steel-like punch. Hickster watched carefully, analyzing the situation, and realized that Damien, standing outside, was also contributing to the battle. "Not one person, but two. I am ready to take a hit from that mage," he thought. The punch landed squarely on Hickster's face, blood spraying wildly. With terrifying speed, Asta followed up immediately with another strike. Hickster struggled to keep his footing on the floor, panic rising in his chest. "What the?" He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to swallow the bone-deep pain. Sweat began pouring down his face. Why does this guy's punch hurt so much, damn it? A surge of jade-green energy enveloped Asta, radiating overwhelming power that completely dominated him. Judging from the speed and force of the attacks, Hickster's suspicion reached its peak. Is he really a mage? He shot a glance at Damien, astonished. Healing magic. Outside the barrier, Damien had his hands extended toward Hickster, channeling mana to mend his injuries. Hickster tried to calm himself and adjust his stance. Asta smiled with complete ease, raising both hands in front of him. A glowing sphere began to form between his palms. Hickster, still reeling in pain and confusion, could not understand why. He narrowed his eyes at Damien, briefly distracted by the realization, so noble families really are different. Seizing the moment, Asta dashed forward at blinding speed, mocking him aloud. "Hurts that much and you still dare to look away, huh?" Hickster felt the flood of restorative energy Damien had sent through him, but it was only enough for him to raise his arms defensively against Asta's relentless assault. He was completely on the back foot. Asta observed Hickster's surprisingly agile dodges, smirking. "Not bad at all." Hickster growled inwardly, furious. "This lunatic is just punching me senseless." A glance at Damien revealed the truth, that guy's the one healing me. Asta's barrage continued, turning Hickster into a human punching bag. Inwardly, Hickster cursed, insane. "My heart is racing like crazy. I just wish one punch could knock me out." Finally, he got a moment to breathe. The whites of his eyes were all exposed as he stared wide-eyed, his body trembling uncontrollably. Doubt filled his gaze. Am I scared? Outside, the crowd erupted, cheering frantically. "Hickster, what are you doing? Do not hold back." Only Hickster could fully sense the oppressive dominance of his opponent, and his face turned pale. Their faces were ecstatic. The saint of the Dolanpe house, the star of the eastern continent, the hope of every fighter. They cheered without restraint. "We believe in you, you have been toying with them long enough, finish this." Those words sounded like an insult to Hickster. He ground his teeth, eyes wild. "How dare you?" Rage contorted his features into something ferocious. Veins stood out in his eyes. Hickster howled, a mere mage and you dare. He threw himself forward like a wounded beast, but Asta simply stepped back a pace and avoided him completely. No damage landed. Asta glanced at the charging Hickster and thought, not bad. Hickster seemed to lose his mind. He screamed as he came, do not, each syllable spat in contempt. He aimed a punch square at Asta, sending him flying. Outside, the crowd burst into cheers. That is our Hickster. But Hickster ground his teeth and stared at his fist, bewildered. The impact had felt direct and solid, yet why was it so light? He clenched his hand, refusing to relax, utterly puzzled. How could it be so weak? Asta rolled once in midair and landed solidly. He dusted off his sleeve as if nothing had happened, glancing down at his clothes with a calm, indifferent look. The dirt's on your shirt now. Hickster froze for a moment, then roared and lunged like lightning. Asta still stood there, composed, both hands in his pockets, glancing toward Damien while silently calculating. Damien keeps using healing magic on him. If I want to finish this, I have to knock him out in one hit. Meanwhile, Damien kept treating the guy with enthusiastic, friendly healing. Asta closed his eyes and felt the mana currents around him. Alright, this move will do it. Blue streaks of lightning shot from his hands, energy gathering, a technique he would invented along with his teammates in his past life. His focused gaze opened coldly. The technique harvested energy from the collisions of mana particles. Asta focused on his target, Hickster, channeling mana, but this was not pure martial arts or conventional magic. He surged forward, every ounce of his strength converging in his hand, a technique purely built on the properties of mana. He delivered his final punch with a resonant, thunderous roar. Lightning erupted, and Hickster did not have a chance to react. The crowd around them flinched under the shockwave, gasping in alarm. A young spectator tried to pry his eyes open, desperate to see what had happened. What is going on? Before him, all he could see was a haze of dust and Hickster still standing there, motionless. Swift feet hit the ground. Asta moved like a blur, appearing and vanishing in an instant. The crowd froze, eyes wide with astonishment. Silence fell over the scene. Then a hand shot up, clenched tightly as if declaring victory. It was Asta, the one left standing after the decisive strike. He let out a cold snort. His gaze swept over the silent crowd, commanding them with audacious defiance, cheer, all of you. Immediately, a roar erupted like an earthquake, fueled by pure exhilaration. So cool. Is he really a mage? He did it, he actually did it, that bastard. This is the moment the weak triumphs. Suddenly, a sweet voice called from behind, friend. Damien dashed forward to celebrate, grinning ear to ear, pride shining in his eyes. We did it. Asta nodded, ruffling his hair. Yeah. He teased lightly, now, do not suck your thumb anymore, alright. Across the way, the others watched the two celebrating with complex expressions. One student crossed his arms and sneered. Never thought a mage could fight like that. Just then, a sharp, annoyed voice rang out from behind, brimming with exasperation. So rude. The noise intensified. Move aside, go somewhere else, you hooligans. A man appeared, shouting at the top of his lungs. It is the enrollment ceremony. Why's it sounding like a broken marketplace? The man who'd appeared kept turning this way and that, shouting scoldings. Was it you, or you? If you do not quiet down right now, I will have you all arrested. Asta frowned inwardly. Great, I am in trouble now. He glanced toward the noisy figure behind him, tempted to give up, but told himself it would be fine after all, he was a cleaner. He knew how to vanish. Asta tried to keep as quiet as possible. There were always ways to slip away, and since everyone was so hyped up, they would not notice him so easily. But then he looked at Damien and froze. The kid was yelling loudly, pointing straight at them. Not the miss, it is us, over here, over here. Asta tightened his eyes in exasperation. Damien's outburst immediately grabbed the man's attention. The man snapped angrily, so it is those hooligans. Damien cheerfully owned it. Not trying to run, it is really us. He gestured toward the front, drawing the man's focus to where Hickster lay unconscious on the floor. From a closed room, the stern voice of the man echoed out, Damien, you and Asta. Asta stood upright, his face showing mild annoyance at the trouble they would caused, while Damien was openly thrilled, bouncing with excitement. Yes, yes. The man sat in his chair, his expression serious. You two confessed honestly, I see. So this time, I will let it slide, no points deducted. He seemed to note that the opponent had not suffered serious injury either. Yet he did not fail to furrow his brow in warning. From now on, I will be watching you both more closely. Asta immediately exhaled in relief, standing a little straighter. The schoolyard had grown quiet. Sunlight filtered through the high canopy of old trees, casting cool shadows. Asta pushed open the door and stepped outside. He took a deep breath. Lucky the opening ceremony has not started yet. At that moment, murmurs and whispers began to rise around them. Is that him? He actually defeated a martial artist with that body. And is that a mage using combat like that? Damien, never one to be calm, immediately waved back. Everyone's looking at us. Asta's expression stayed icy. Damn it, we are standing out way too much, stop waving, kid. A group of 3 students quickly approached, paying attention to them. One spoke up, ah, there they are. Damien's face lit up, completely carefree, clearly overjoyed. Maybe they have saved seats for us, what great classmates, huh? Asta responded politely, yeah, seems like it. At that moment, the bald forehead and silvery hair of the academy's headmaster appeared, and his voice began to rise, yes, so it is. The headmaster, with a serious expression, launched into his speech, continuing the teachings of the great sage, the first headmaster. Our academy will. His words stretched on, though they were drowned out by the noise below. Only bits and pieces could be caught. Damien chuckled quietly while Asta maintained his usual cool demeanor, thinking, this guy's persistent standing there lecturing for so long. Then Asta noticed Damien beside him. The kid had closed his eyes and was nodding off, asleep without anyone noticing. Asta let out a soft sigh. This guy. He grabbed Damien's hand and wiped his mouth. Stop drooling already, for heaven's sake. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Excuse me, headmaster, someone says you are needed for a moment. The headmaster paused, slightly surprised. A more urgent matter than the opening ceremony. Someone whispered into the headmaster's ear, and his expression immediately shifted. He cleared his throat and spoke into the microphone. I apologize, students. An urgent matter has arisen and I must leave immediately. The speech will end here, but the ceremony will continue. With that, he waved and promptly departed. Shortly after, a girl with long hair stepped forward. She strode forward with her hands on her hips, exuding an overwhelming aura of authority. Her gaze swept across the auditorium as if searching for the one who had committed the outrageous offense. And then she shouted, commanding everyone's attention. Even the teachers sitting nearby trembled with fear. The students could not help but flinch as well, and even the man who had earlier tried to quell the chaos fell silent. Maintaining her intimidating posture, she introduced herself, I am Gerada. On behalf of the headmaster, due to his sudden scheduling conflict, I will be overseeing the opening ceremony. Her voice resonated throughout the hall. We shall begin with the oath of the new students. First, representing the magical arts, Dahlia de Denai. A faint voice from the front row replied, yes. Gerada looked surprised. What, even a member of the Denai family is taking the entrance exam, is it because their skill is insufficient? The girl confidently stepped forward. A murmur ran through the crowd below. Think about it. She is the 3rd daughter of the head of the household. If her abilities were not enough, would Denai even let her take the entrance exam? Asta furrowed his brow at the girl. Dahlia de Denai. He assessed her silently. If the Declan family was the most prestigious magical family in the East, then the Denai family came immediately after in prominence. He recalled events from his previous life. Dahlia had grown up in the Denai household, always ranked 2nd in her generation, and had become the representative mage for the family's future. Her abilities were remarkable, and when he had abandoned his role as a cleaner, she had offered substantial help. Given their past relationship, Asta raised a hand to his chin, smiling slightly. It was a bit amusing. Though it would be inaccurate to call them benefactors to one another, their bond leaned closer to that of friendly rivals. In any case, Dahlia's enrollment in this year's class was worth noting. Gerada continued the roll call. Next, representing the martial arts division, Paolo. The young man immediately responded, his tone decisive, yes. Asta, standing quietly behind, assessed the situation. The martial arts division had not announced family names, indicating that Paolo probably came from a non-noble background. As for the Hickster or hipster guy, despite his noble lineage, that was as far as it went. Asta wondered how furious the truly prestigious families would be. After Paolo stepped forward, Gerarda declared, "That concludes the oath-taking portion." She continued with her introductions. "Next, I present the professors who will be responsible for the upcoming class of 172. I invite the professors to step forward one by one." At that moment, Dahlia seemed to focus her attention in a certain direction. Asta felt, almost instinctively, that someone's gaze was fixed intently on him. What is this, just a feeling? Right. He could not help but feel a moment of unease, as though he had locked eyes with someone. But he quickly dismissed the thought. It is not important. Meanwhile, Dahlia began slowly descending the stairs, apparently distracted by something else. She suddenly tripped and let out a startled cry. Asta's thoughts were hardly diverted. He stroked his chin thoughtfully. "I have heard Professor Perun is here." Glancing toward the professor standing on the podium, impatience stirred within him. When will he finally step forward? One by one, the other professors came up to give their speeches. At last, the person he had been waiting for appeared. An authoritative voice rang out, "A pleasure, I am Perun, in charge of the basic curriculum for the principles of magic." Asta furrowed his brow, sizing him up. He would expected a Perun to have an aura similar to Henge, but this was different. He studied the man before him and thought, even so, Henge is a person of character, excellent at wearing a social mask. You should not judge too quickly. Gerarda then spoke up. That concludes the professor introductions. The matriculation ceremony is now closed. Asta glanced at Damien, who was still out cold. Gerarda's voice must have rocked him to sleep. "Follow the dorm stewards to your assigned dormitories," she said. Asta tapped Damien on the shoulder to wake him. "Get up." Damien, still drooling, blinked groggily. "Already?" Asta's face went stone cold. He did not even blink. "No, you were caught napping, so you were expelled. Let us go home." Damien's eyes went wide with horror. A terrifying image flashed through his head. By then the sun was low. Sunset light gilded the rooftops of the academy. Asta strolled down the corridor toward his dorm, thinking in resignation, that kid Damien, one little joke and he screams like that. He stopped in front of a door. He stared at the quiet door and wondered, is this it? Reluctantly he pushed the door open and stepped inside. Why is my room on the very bottom floor? Looking around at the furnishings, he admitted quietly, the academy really is nice. He checked out a corner desk. Oh, these are standard dorm items. They outfit the whole academy with the same stuff. He opened a wardrobe and found coat hooks. Holding the jacket hanging inside, he thought, even a little item can betray your origins. But everyone will get their own things eventually. As he stepped out, he ran into someone. Asta remembered, his roommate, I think it was Paolo, but the guy's gaze was not exactly friendly. Paolo closed his eyes and said coldly, do your best to keep quiet. He carried a suitcase, expressionless. He did not care how you arranged your stuff or where you put things. He went on to make rules that sounded like a plea for distance. Staying up late is fine, but do not bother each other. Do not talk after lights out, either. When Asta did not answer, Paolo opened his eyes and fixed him with a threatening stare. Answer me. Asta's eyes gleamed with detached calm as he looked at the person in front of him. Let us see what he is about. Seeing Asta remain silent, Paolo's irritation grew. His voice sharpened. Why are not you answering? Meanwhile, Asta was quietly sifting through his memory. I heard he is the top student in the martial combat track. Wonder how strong he really is. With that thought, he suddenly tilted his body and darted forward, closing the distance to Paolo in an instant. Paolo reacted instinctively, his hand brushing against the hilt of his sword. What are you trying to do? He asked, alert. Asta stopped abruptly, glancing down. Not bad. Observing the way Paolo held his sword, Asta silently acknowledged the restraint. He knows how to wield a weapon responsibly, without harming others. Not bad at all. Just then, Damien's voice rang from outside. Hey, come on out. Asta scoffed softly. What am I doing, just heading out? He slid past Paolo, lightly patting him on the shoulder. Your choice. But in exchange. Asta turned back with a bright, mischievous smile. Even if I sing at midnight, do not complain, got it? Outside, Damien hopped excitedly toward him. Hey, come on. He asked with enthusiasm, who is your roommate? Asta replied casually, unbothered, Paolo. Damien froze for a few seconds, murmuring, Paolo. Do not even know who that is. Asta rolled his eyes internally, thinking, of course he was dead asleep. Still brimming with energy, Damien raised his hand, eager to pull Asta along. Anyway, let us tour the academy, Lancy said. There is so much to see here. We have to start on the very first day. Oh, and we need to go together, too. Hearing this, Asta considered it briefly. Might as well see what is worth checking out. A small smirk curved his lips. All right, let us go. The two of them strolled side by side across the campus. The atmosphere was calm and harmonious, their conversation flowing uninterrupted. The sunset painted the sky in warm orange hues, casting a gentle glow over the scenery, bathing everything in a serene light. They paused for a moment on a bridge. Damien's excitement burst out with a loud whoa. The lake, a lake, we do not have anything like this at home. Beside him, Asta appeared slightly weary from his companion's enthusiasm. In front of them stretched a crystal-clear lake, small ripples dancing across its surface. Asta felt a twinge of fatigue. Exhausting. Feels like I am dragging a child along. No wonder Lancy paired me with him. But who am I? I am petty, bother me, and I will strike back. He muttered under his breath, then just have them handle it. Damien, not understanding, turned his wide eyes toward him. Asta smiled and explained casually, all you need to do is dig a bit and pour water and that is it. Immediately, Damien's eyes lit up like stars, his excitement bursting forth. Right, tell them to make it bigger, even bigger than this lake. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Lancy sneezed while washing dishes, feeling a shiver run down her spine. With this idea in mind, Damien began to seriously ponder what to name the lake. Asta chuckled softly, then leisurely let a name slip, Blood Tear Lake. The moment he said it, Damien's face lit up, and he clapped his hands with a loud smack, sealing the decision instantly. At the mansion, Lancy shivered again, a sudden, ominous premonition rolling over her like a crashing wave. Damien continued exploring, pointing enthusiastically. Look at that statue, it is amazing. Let us make that Blood Tear Lake too. Without a second thought, Damien dove into an endless stream of ideas, gesturing as if orchestrating an art piece. Make the dragon sculpted perfectly, every scale refined, elegant, that is how it looks beautiful. The more Damien talked, the more excited he became, nodding rapidly. Perfect, exquisite. Lancy, pale as a sheet and drenched in cold sweat, felt her neck prickling. What? What is this? Why does it send chills down my spine? After wandering for a while, Asta finally asked, all right, think we have seen enough. Ready to head back? Damien responded joyfully without hesitation. Asta nodded slightly, but his gaze darkened, sharpening with focus. Let us see. The cleaner has already spotted about 7 targets. Counting those not yet identified, roughly 10. Judging by their distribution, the center seems to be. His eyes settled on the imposing structure of Mage Studies Hall No. 2. Digging through his memory, he recalled, Mage Studies Hall No. 2 housed Professor Perun's research chambers. So, the target really is Professor Perun. Asta began calculating strategically. Declan has likely realized Henge has an accomplice, so now suspicion will naturally fall on Perun, the person closely tied to him. His gaze flicked toward a thicket, where a shadowy figure lurked, silently observing. Asta's lips curled into a faint, sardonic smirk. A thrill rose within him like an undercurrent of the sea. Am I worried we have not followed them yet? Perfect timing, we are tracking them nicely. Let us see what they are aware of. Later that night, the sky was heavy with darkness, a thick blanket of night swallowing the academy. A lone lamppost cast a dim yellow light, swaying gently in the cold, desolate wind. Suddenly, a shadow streaked across the rooftops, moving so swiftly and fluidly that it left only a fleeting blur. Light, cat-like steps carried him silently, and in an instant, he had reached the eastern building. With just a light kick, the shadow landed on the ground almost silently. The moment he touched down, a voice called out from the darkness, "You have arrived." The newcomer nodded slightly and stepped forward, asking concisely, "Where are the others?" The figure waiting answered briefly, "They went ahead. Orders came from above, urgent. The intel indicates everything is to be consolidated at the target's hideout." The newcomer paused, curious. "Main target, or secondary?" "Secondary," came the calm reply. He added further, "It seems the main target has already been tailed, but intelligence has been gathered. Tonight, at exactly midnight, the item will be delivered to the secondary target." Hearing this, the man in black who had just arrived touched his chin thoughtfully. "Ah, so that is how it is." He fell silent for a moment, analyzing the situation. "Henge. The main target has acted. The orders given to us mean that among the secondary targets, the one we need to monitor is Professor Perun." As if realizing something, the newcomer's eyes widened in sudden shock. He tensed, asking sharply, "Wait, what about the numbers? Are we supposed to get past those monstrous professors? At the very least, number 1 should show up, or maybe a few of the lower ranks. Only then could we handle them." The figure in black, standing casually in the room, replied nonchalantly, "Number 1 is not coming. The other ranks are not either." The first man could not help but tear at his hair, swearing under his breath, "Damn it." Just as despair began to settle in, the other spoke again, his voice deep and hoarse. "But Huo Ma Callahan, he is joining." The newcomer felt as if struck by lightning, eyes widening in disbelief. Callahan. From what he remembered, Callahan was the Ruby vice captain of Declan's Magic Corps. If it is him, then he is more than capable. Recalling this, the first man ground his teeth. Cold, methodical, ruthless for the mission. Thinking further, he swallowed hard, trying to steady the tremor rising inside him, muttering under his breath, "Damn it. Risking your life for the mission, of course." The other man in black remained calm, offering reassurance. "It is not certain this will escalate into a fight. The family also would not risk revealing a high-profile mage during this mission." The first man let out a cold snort. "Fair enough. Let us think that way." The calm man prompted, "Then let us move." The two shadows shot out from the building, hurrying to regroup, hoping to increase their chances of survival. However, what they did not know was that all their movements were already under the watchful eyes of someone else. Standing atop a nearby rooftop, moonlight casting over his face, he observed silently. "Midnight, huh?" The cold night wind blew past, carrying a faint sound, like a breath. Could it really be Callahan? At this moment, Asta fell into a thoughtful silence, surveying the scene. The Zenyan Academy was vast, immense. Really, so he had to familiarize himself with the layout to avoid getting lost, even for someone like him. He let his gaze linger on the buildings surrounding the fountain for a long moment. His eyes hardened, a quiet certainty settling within him. All right, not bad at all. Deep inside, a vague thrill flickered, a faint excitement at having something to occupy his mind. Not quite like in his previous life, but enough to stir a sense of anticipation. It was a quiet evening, with only the flickering glow of a blue flame illuminating the surroundings. Disguised in black, Asta sat in place, watching intently. His entire presence radiated the familiar aura of a cleaner, the subtle, predatory air of someone from the Declan household. Callahan leapt into the air, a sly, sinister grin spreading across his face. Callahan, the one who still basked in his glory even while I was active. He turned his back toward someone, recalling the time when the Declan family had risked everything to confront the Blando clan. Farron smiled faintly, remaining behind with the declining family to prove his loyalty. Callahan's silhouette exuded danger. He was perilous now, yes, but his true peak had come after the battle with the Blandos. He smirked with that familiar malicious twist, the Declan's flame mage, unstoppable, leaving his mark as a war sorcerer. Finally, Asta made a decision. So be it, I have to capture him. His gaze lingered on the glowing tome, contemplating. Callahan's magic was one of the secret fire techniques of the Declan, and as one of the continent's most renowned mages, he was worth the risk. Asta lowered his head, walking with deep thought. I have always wondered why such a troublesome figure would trail behind and then return. This is an unexpected windfall, but there is still something that bothers me. Then his expression hardened with resolve. The target they mentioned, the Henze manuscript, was with me. A blank sheet of paper appeared in Asta's mind. Yet they claimed the target would be delivered to the secondary target, Professor Perun. Two fully masked figures also appeared, asserting with certainty, my manuscript could not be fake, and there was no way the target they spoke of was not that manuscript. Asta spoke slowly, then the target being delivered today is a fake manuscript. A man appeared, adjusting his cloak as he moved. He reached into a cabinet to retrieve something. Immediately, he slid a weapon into his belt. Then, with a wave of his hand, he turned and walked away. Nearby, another person slept under a blanket, completely unaware, while the man, fully cloaked, moved lightly. That was Paolo. He glanced sharply to the side, his eyes keen and alert. The blue-haired man lay dreaming on the bed, oblivious. Outside the castle, darkness had fallen. All the lights were out, except for one room shining brightly. A candle flickered beside Perun. He was focused intently on something. Moments later, Perun squeezed his eyes shut, grimacing. Dekulin. You filthy rats. He cursed furiously, anger boiling. They had exposed a weakness, but I restrained myself since they had not crossed the line yet. Now they dared to encroach on my domain so brazenly. What is this? Suddenly, Perun's eyes sharpened. Ah, so that is it. The white door of the room creaked open. A figure, covered head to toe, stepped inside. Perun glanced at him thoughtfully. Mercenary, and then, decisively, he called the figure's name, making him start in surprise, Paolo. Perun spoke calmly, instructive. Next time you plan on disguising yourself, first learn how to refine the shape of your ether. That is the basic skill of covert action. Paolo held the white envelope out and placed it in front of Perun. Perun glanced down, then muttered, all right if there is a next time. Paolo frowned, confused by the comment, as if not quite catching the meaning behind Perun's words. Perun nodded once while holding the envelope, then said, observing rather than opening it, Henze. So it was you. He continued, you tried to transfer the manuscript without letting Dekulin see, but in the end you were terribly compromised. Then Perun changed his tone. Know that fox would not be caught that easily. Footsteps hurried off somewhere. What were you planning, Henze? Perun asked, suspicious. In the next instant the room exploded into crimson flame. A cloaked figure stepped in, bowing slightly. A pleasure to meet you, Professor Perun. It was Callahan. He grinned wickedly and ran a hand through his hair. I am Callahan. Tell me, would a professor who hides away in his lab even notice? Paolo froze, panic flashing across his face. Still arrogant, Callahan continued, looks like we have other guests, mercenaries. That swordsman there seems to know me. But the professor. Perun moved quickly to cut him off. I have never heard that name before. He planted his hand on the table and stood up abruptly. Enough of this. Stop the posturing and get to the point. Callahan sneered, your stench alone makes my nose want to rot. Then he laughed harshly. Interesting. This is the first time I have been treated this way. Fine, I will be direct. Callahan pointed straight at Paolo and stated flatly, that one dies. Orange runes began to bloom at his fingertips. Perun's expression tightened. Callahan's eyes flashed. Should I take your hand? Or your eyes? He sneered. Suddenly a hand grabbed someone's robe hard. Perun stepped forward and intercepted Callahan's strike. The two blows crashed together with brutal force, leaving the room a scene of shattered chaos. Paolo squinted, then shouted loudly. He struggled to open his eyes, trying to see what his opponent would do next. Both of them remained rooted beneath the rubble. Perun turned and called out, Paolo. With a calm demeanor, he added, from this moment on, I will consider you a mercenary before a student. So take care of your own life. Paolo understood immediately and responded swiftly, yes, sir. Perun nodded thoughtfully, noticing that despite the explosion, no bells had rung, likely a sign that those Dekulin rats had set up concealed magic. Night was slowly falling over the grand castle towers. Perun narrowed his eyes, deep in thought. I can only rely on that rookie mercenary. Callahan still stood there, brazen and taunting. This envelope of documents, definitely from that Blando trash. He sneered, clearly unwilling to hand it over. Perun glanced at him, considering, what do I do now? Suddenly, Callahan twisted his face into a frightening expression and asked, or shall I toy with you a little? No sooner had he spoken than he unleashed a strike, bathing the area in golden light. Perun and Paolo, caught off guard, could only stand and watch. Then, several masked figures appeared seemingly out of nowhere, swooping in. Callahan opened his mouth in a devilish laugh. Paolo's eyes widened instinctively, anxiety written across his face. Immediately, Perun created a white magic circle in front of him. The streams of white and golden light from the two collided violently, clashing in midair. From a distance, a cloaked figure observed the battle, noting the beams illuminating the castle. It was Asta. He looked up and thought to himself, it is starting. He pulled out a mask, holding it in his hand for a moment. Then, after a long pause, he placed it over his face. Asta's eyes gleamed with determination as he moved with agility, no longer just Asta, but the #1 cleaner. With everything in place, Asta looked straight ahead and said, all right, let us go. He pressed his hands together. Lady Moon, he murmured, a half prayer. Asta earnestly wished aloud, let me be the one to put out the chaos tonight. He narrowed his eyes, but to be honest, he would never been one for righteousness. In an instant he sprang upward. The castle below had already been battered into ruins. Callahan laughed out loud, not bad, mercenary. Paolo panted, exhausted, yet still gripped his sword tightly. He glanced behind him anxiously. Damn it. At Paolo's hip a small trinket glowed. The captain's charm turned out to be a protective talisman after all. Lucky break. Then a voice snapped, get out of here. Perun's eyes flared as he swooped in. He unleashed a powerful strike at Callahan, who answered in kind without hesitation. Perun slapped Paolo's shoulder with a brief nod, not bad. Maybe I can trust you a little more. Paolo peered at his blade and frowned. Etched on the sword was a charm. Perun asked, checking, can you hold them? Paolo stared forward, then answered, as many as it takes. He steeled himself and added, it is not about whether I can. If I fail, I die. Callahan sneered, amused and contemptuous. A mage and a guardian, what an interesting pair. A shaft of light slid across the broken ice. Callahan did not hesitate. He struck at Paolo. Fortunately, Paolo blocked with his sword and rolled aside. Perun still held his stance on the green magic circle, watching the guardian be tested. One by one the cloaked attackers were taken down, but if this kept up, they would be drained. An idea sparked in Perun's eye. Then, he looked at Callahan mid-attack and made a decision. I will have to gamble on this. Perun maintained his mana, lost in thought. In nature, the amount of energy available was finite, and when multiple entities attempted to command it at once, a fierce struggle for control was inevitable. Immediately, he poured every ounce of strength into this strike. Let us see how much you can siphon from me. Callahan stood still, a smirk curling at his lips. You are challenging me. Not one to back down, he laughed scornfully and launched himself upward. Fine, let us see what you have got. But as he neared Perun, he suddenly recoiled and shouted. A blinding torrent of power surged, enveloping the entire castle in a terrifying glow. Inside, all three of them were caught within the radiance, suspended in the maelstrom of energy. Paolo hovered in midair, peering down. He squinted, muttering, damn it. Watching Callahan and Perun clash so ferociously, he felt a bitter frustration. These two were monsters. There was no opening, no crack, nothing to exploit. Not long after, Paolo found himself lying immobilized beneath a pile of rubble. If that is how it is going to be, you should have just fought from the start. Outside, three cloaked figures stared up at the raging whirlwind, only to hear a voice cut through, ruthless, truly. A man observing the scene froze in alarm. If we charge in now, it is suicide. Catch your breath first. He glanced back, asking how many cleaners were left. Suddenly, a wave of white light erupted, flinging the cloaked figures violently aside. One man gaped, stunned. An ambush. He shouted, and at the same time, a black cloaked figure landed with astonishing speed, crashing onto a massive stone. It was Asta. His sudden arrival forced Callahan and Perun to glance his way. His cold eyes swept the battlefield as he declared, and now. It is time for my grand entrance. Both adversaries remained locked in combat, but their attention shifted to him, drawn by his words. Callahan's fury flared as he bellowed, "Are you mocking me?" Ignoring the shout, Asta surged forward with unbridled momentum. He swiftly grabbed Callahan by the neck, pressing him firmly. "Callahan." Asta's eyes went ice cold. "This place will be your grave," he said. Caught off guard, Callahan could not react in time. Racked with pain, he could only stare at Asta with wide eyes. Asta shouted, "Die." Callahan thrust both palms hard into Asta's chest and was instantly hurled aside by a terrifying force. He skidded across the ground, face contorted in shock. Clutching his mouth, he spat and grimaced, "Damn it, Mana recoil." Asta did not hesitate. He surged forward again. Callahan coughed up blood from the earlier blow as the other cloaked figures closed in. Callahan grabbed a vial, thinking to himself that he needed to suppress the mana backlash. After downing the potion, he wiped the blood from his lips and wondered where this challenger had come from. Suddenly Callahan's eyes snapped wide. Asta had formed a ring of blue light around himself. Callahan stared dumbfounded. Every motion Asta made was precise, nothing wasted. His magic was refined to blistering speed. Startled, he admitted inwardly, "I am actually impressed." Callahan retaliated by producing countless red magic circles. "I do not know who you are," he snarled, baring fangs as he shouted, "but I will kill you." Streams of light slammed into one another. The cloaked attackers were flung far outward. One red-haired man gaped, eyes wide as if witnessing something horrific. The collision of lights exploded outward, obliterating everything around them. After the powerful strike, Callahan spat blood and wondered, "Did I catch him?" A smug grin spread across his face. Sure, some of the other cleaners had been hit too, but who cared about them? What mattered was completing the mission. He glanced up at the clearing sky. Dark figures blurred and fell. He felt fairly certain that masked person had to be the target to eliminate. Callahan wiped his face and let out a quiet laugh. "I am pumped, not like me at all," he thought, confident he had the upper hand. "If I team up with the rest of the cleaners, I will take Professor Perun down." Then the glass vial in his hand slipped and clattered to the ground. A gun suddenly appeared, aimed directly at him, and a contemptuous voice sneered, "That all you have got?" Through the curling smoke, a shadowed shape revealed itself. "Callahan," the voice said, "on the outside you might look reckless, but inside you are as cold as a snake. I knew you would try to blow me and the cleaners to bits." Asta made a quick finger gun motion toward the magical array before him and continued, "You." He bluntly exposed the opponent's weakness. That same cruelty was what would make him fail. No sooner had the words left his mouth than Asta fired a single beam of light forward. Callahan could only stand there stunned, one word looping in his head. Too fast. The powerful beam sliced through the air and cut across him. The wind blew away tiny spray of blood. The small tight ponytail at the back of Callahan's head snapped off and dropped. A bullet pierced straight through his forehead, leaving a blood-soaked hole in his skull. Asta stepped down slowly and stood before the collapsed body. The fight had taken a toll on him. He had a clear respect for Callahan's power. No wonder the man was notorious. That explosive attack earlier showed his strength. Most others would have died to such a sudden hit, yet Callahan had been able to counterattack. His tactical reputation was earned. His reactions and judgment were razor sharp. Of course, there'd been an element of luck on Asta's part. Callahan's final move had actually created the opening Asta needed. If Callahan had coordinated a prolonged fight with the other cleaners, Asta would have lost. His mana reserves were still far too limited. Asta stepped closer to the fallen man. He patted Callahan down and rifled through his belongings. "Let us see. Must be around here somewhere." At last he pulled out a small cloth pouch containing a few items. Just as he suspected, battle mages do not trust anyone, so they carry their own secret techniques with them. Asta took the pouch as his own. The timeless pouch even offered basic owner identification. He could examine it more thoroughly later. Once everything was settled, he turned his head and glanced to the side. Asta spoke, his tone carrying a hint of reproach, "You are late." Through the haze of smoke, a man appeared, walking forward. Asta called softly, "Professor Perun." The man responded calmly with a hum of acknowledgement before explaining, It just took a bit longer to eliminate those vermin. All the people on the other side had already been frozen by Perun. He maintained his cold demeanor, raising his hand and channeling his power. More importantly, he remarked, "So, you are a rat too." Asta, however, seemed unconcerned. Instead, he laughed loudly. "One's insane, the other's a combat thug. How do you feel about the fact that I just killed one of Dakulin's men?" Perun relaxed his guards slightly at Asta's attitude. "If you call that one insane, then surely you are the person Henzi sent." "Ah. And I am not that thug." Asta felt a bit speechless. "You really believe me just because of that?" Perun's curiosity about the identity of the mercenary he had previously encountered was clear. He asked, somewhat offhandedly, did he split the thesis into 2 parts? Asta ignored the question, brushing it aside. "I have not heard anything about that, so I can't say. It is very likely a fake. Henzi probably planned it meticulously, using a counterfeit as bait to lure out the rats." Recalling Henzi's excited expression, Asta reasoned, "I will be the one to draw them in." He guessed that Henzi's goal was likely to strengthen defenses in Hazen and at this academy, while simultaneously reducing the influence of the Dakulin house. Asta reflected further. Even though the cleaners had cast spells to hide themselves, the battle had been sizable. Reports were late, yet there was no sign of the Imperial Knights arriving clearly. The Dakulin house had used its connections. Perun then confirmed once again Asta's identity. "So, you really are the messenger." Asta directly presented a neatly bundled stack of papers. Perun picked them up, examining them carefully. Then he lifted his gaze from the documents. "Do you understand the content?" Asta did not hide anything. "I only know the basics." Perun did not press further, simply replying in his usual composed tone, "Understood." At this, Asta was straightforward. "All right. I do not mind a one-on-one fight, but are you sure? I do not want to lose a trusted ally." Perun tucked the documents into his robe. Rarely did they see eye to eye, but he said, "Fine. I will take the thesis for now. I do not want to lose an ally, so let us set this matter aside." Then he changed the subject. "Do you want anything?" Noticing the puzzled look on Asta's face, Perun explained, "That man, Henzi, seems to trust only a certain type of person, those whose desires align with his. Surely, you are one of that type as well. So, to build trust, I need to give you something." Hearing this, Asta considered seriously for a long moment before finally answering, "A book." Perun's reaction betrayed a hint of surprise. Needing a moment to confirm, "A book." Asta began to envision the scene. "I will build a tower, a big, tall tower, and fill it with books anyone can read. If someone contributes a book expressing their personal views on magic, that would be perfect." Perun scratched his head and muttered in agreement, "All right. I do not think anyone could read and understand it all, but writing a book sounds better. Seems fun enough." Asta turned, thinking the matter was settled, and prepared to leave. "I have to go now." But Perun suddenly called out, "Wait, how will we stay in contact? Are not you supposed to deliver the next thesis?" Asta gave a serious response that left Perun momentarily speechless. "I do not maintain contact information for men." He then reached into his pocket and pulled out a string of purple beads. Asta tossed the bracelet toward Perun. "Use this. It is a communication crystal. They are linked. If one breaks, the other breaks too. Want to call me, break it once. If there is trouble, break it twice." He left one final note, "At that moment, I will come to you." Perun took the beads, then remarked on another matter. "Well, I do not particularly like men either." But when he looked up again, the other had already vanished. He muttered to himself, "Why do I feel uneasy?" Time passed, and before long, the Imperial Knights of the Empire arrived. After taking stock of the situation, the knights quickly secured the scene. They split up to tend to each injured person and then evacuated the academy students, anticipating the possibility of a second attack. By this time, Asta had changed back into his usual attire. Naturally, he took the opportunity to blend in with the students. Damien, still half asleep, watched him with curiosity. "Friend, where have you been? Feels like I have not seen you in forever." Asta gave a casual reply, "Had to handle a big matter." He scanned the scene, calculating the next steps. "Let us see. The bodies of Callahan and the other cleaners, trace evidence is clear. The Dakulin house should lie low for a while. Seeing that he was momentarily distracted, Damien looked around, misunderstanding him. Friend, you have been gone so long. Constipated, want me to fix that for you? Asta did not answer. He stayed lost in thought. Why did Juan react like that in the fight just now? Normally he would not counter, but when I blocked Callahan's magic, his energy seeped into my field. Because of that I was able to stop it. So maybe it was not a bad thing. He replayed the feeling in his mind. It was not that the field grew stronger, but rather yes, some kind of canceling effect. He connected similar cases where that kind of magic was used. It is mainly a method elemental mages employ, a technique that prevents the caster from being harmed like Callahan, who uses fire. Asta turned his face, frowning aloud. I do not get it. Damien, sitting beside him, mistook the mutter for conversation and eagerly offered to help. You do not understand. Pull your pants down right now, friend. But Asta's thought kept drifting back. Why did it react then, and what were the triggering conditions? He looked toward the distant castle and told himself, I need to investigate. Also do not drop your pants, Damien. Standing before an austere, classical building, Asta quietly made a plan. Lapeter, the largest library in the east, inside the academy. I should find clues there. Suddenly someone called out, Hey, you are Asta, right? A boy approached with a friendly greeting. Nice to meet you, I am Chenbi. Asta kept his cool and replied coldly, and the kid kept smiling. You are pretty good in a fight, are not you? That line put Asta on guard. What, he saw me fight? If my identity's blown, that'll be a mess. Do I need to kill him? Faced with Chenbi's enthusiasm, Asta thought to himself, what, he saw me fight, that is a huge stain on my record as a cleaner. The boy continued, oblivious, showering praise. That brawl with the martial system right on the first day of school, pretty impressive. How can you fight like that? Asta's edge softened slightly at the comment, leaving him momentarily speechless. No scandal, and yet it makes me known. Well, of course it should. Seeing there was nothing critical, Asta turned his face away. He was just low on stamina back then. It will be different next time. Chenbi scratched his head and laughed. Ah, I see. He shyly followed behind Asta and Damien as they made their way through the crowd. After a while, Chenbi finally expressed his wish openly. Ah, actually. I want to come along. I have not really made friends with anyone yet, and if I stick elsewhere, it is a bit. You know. Asta cast a quick glance and replied, roughly got it. This was something he had understood long ago. In principle, the academy promised equal treatment and disregarded social standing, but that was the institution's stance, not the students'. Someone from a poor family like him naturally ended up on the outskirts. After thinking it over, he realized he was not concerned. Well, I do not really care, he decided. Turning back, he agreed to Chenbi, sure, whatever. Chenbi exhaled in relief. Thank goodness. Honestly, I was pretty uneasy. Feeling more at ease, Chenbi tried to ingratiate himself. If something like what happened just now happens again, being alone would be awkward. Asta let out a quiet chuckle. That makes sense. Encouraged, Chenbi began to speak more boldly. Ah, right, and this. The two chatted comfortably along the way. For Asta, it was a fresh experience. So this is what a normal conversation feels like, he thought. He lifted his indifferent eyes, reflecting, in this life, it is always the crazy ones who stick around. Recalling the vivid faces he had encountered recently, Asta comforted himself. I would forgotten what normal felt like. The corners of his mouth curved into a faint smile. Now, the academy life truly begins. The next morning at the academy. Golden sunlight spilled across the glimmering buildings. In the lecture hall, nearly all the students were present. Damien yawned loudly, sprawling across the desk in exhaustion. Sleepiness weighed heavily on him. At that moment, Chenbi arrived, waving cheerfully. Good morning, Asta, Damien. As soon as he sat down, Chenbi looked a bit annoyed. Yesterday was such a huge mess, and now we are back to class, is not that a bit much? Asta flipped a page in his book and replied casually, yeah, fair enough. Asta observed him quietly. Chenbi's tone from yesterday did not sound like that of a noble, nor did he come across as someone from a wealthy family, but he was not timid at all, and there was a natural brightness about him. Asta felt a pleasant sense of goodwill, thinking to himself that he could be a decent friend. Suddenly, Chenbi turned and called out, "Hey, have you heard yet?" He leaned in and shared some information. "On the way here, I heard that the homeroom teacher for our M3 class is Professor Gerada." The unfamiliar name piqued Asta's curiosity. "Gerada," he repeated quietly. Chenbi's eyes widened. "Do not tell me you have not heard of Professor Gerada. She is the one rumored to have wiped out an entire group of trolls on her own." "Oh, here she comes." Asta looked down toward the podium, recognition dawning. "Ah, right." The familiar face reminded him of the professor standing there during yesterday's opening ceremony. Gerada spoke with a calm, authoritative tone. "Good morning. I am Gerada. Yesterday there was a little commotion, but nothing serious, so I hope you will set that aside and focus on your studies." She gestured toward a device being set up. "Before our first lesson begins, we will be measuring magical energy. Essentially, mana has two aspects, quantity and quality. Now, which of the two is more important?" Raising a hand, Gerada called on a student. "What is your name?" A young girl stood hesitantly. I am Arjun." "Very well, Arjun. Please answer." The girl spoke carefully, her tone serious. "I believe there is not an absolute answer, but if a certain precise level of mana is reached, then the quality of the mana is more important." Gerada pressed further. "And why do you think that?" Arjun explained, "When dueling against a mage of equal rank, the one with superior mana quality will prevail." Asta took note of this answer, partly agreeing. "Yes, that is orthodox. Mana quality affects accuracy, stability, and potency. Having a lot of mana but missing your target is useless, but..." Sure enough, Gerada immediately showed her displeasure, letting out a sharp tisk that conveyed her disapproval. Arjun's confidence wavered, and her timid demeanor shrank under the weight of the professor's scrutiny. Gerada continued her questioning. "Arjun, what family do you belong to?" The girl answered obediently, "I am from the Palame Viscount family." Hearing that, Gerada's expression twisted with obvious disdain. No wonder. This time, Arjun was completely crushed. Tears welled up in her eyes, a mixture of humiliation and frustration. Yet Gerada paid her no mind and moved on. "Anyone else want to answer?" Her sharp eyes swept across the classroom. No one. Suddenly, she singled out a boy at random. "You there?" The boy flinched in surprise. "Why, yes." Gerada teased him, "Is your name really, yes yes?" He hurriedly corrected himself. No, my name is Ipol." Ipol carefully stood and answered the previous question. I think mana quantity is more important. After all, in large-scale battles, the amount of mana has a huge impact, right?" Asta quietly noted this. "Right. Thinking from the other angle, in chaotic combat, quantity outweighs quality. Overall, if we adjust a few variables, both quality and quantity matter." But Gerada's expression betrayed no satisfaction. She asked directly, "Which family do you belong to?" "I do not belong to any family," he stammered. Asta froze for a moment. "What? Could it be that I overlooked something basic?" Gerada continued calling names. One by one, students responded. "I think casting speed is important." The pattern repeated. "Your family?" "I belong to the Sukankiet family." Even someone as composed as Asta felt a stir of unease. She is just randomly picking students, repeating the family question, then moving on. The questioning continued, blending with the murmur of the class. And you? What is going on? This is frustrating." Asta tensed, thinking, what answer could possibly make the atmosphere this heavy? After a while, she concluded the session. "I have heard all of your answers," Gerada said, her tone softening slightly. "In truth, each answer you gave was close to the correct one. No, this was not a question with a single answer. Therefore, what I was looking for is not a fixed answer either." She emphasized one point clearly. "Think carefully, did your answer truly reflect your own thoughts, or were you just guessing what I wanted to hear?" Gerada highlighted the class's earlier shortcomings. She reminded them that as mages, their duty is to never lose their own judgment, to remain unmoved by the eyes of the world, and to carry out their will fully. Her sharp golden eyes narrowed. "So, how about all of you just now?" A stern question echoed through the lecture hall. "Is that truly the quality of a mage?" She concluded firmly, in the future, you must become genuine mages. That is what I hope to convey through this lesson. Engrave it in your hearts. The entire class fell completely silent. Asta finally relaxed, letting go of the tension he had been holding. In the end, what I thought was right. Truly a refreshingly tangled loop. Gerada moved on to the main topic. Now, each of you will have your mana measured. Arjun. The girl, still sniffling from her tears, was called and jumped in surprise. Why, yes. Gerada gave her instructions. You will be the class representative for the magic department of class M3. Your first answer made a very good impression. From now on, record the mana values of your classmates. The girl's face lit up with excitement, and she hurried down to her position. Thank you, madam. Asta let out a small "oh," inwardly reflecting, so this is how she keeps the whole class in line. Chenbi, standing beside him, bit his handkerchief with a hint of envy. Asta blinked, silently thinking, envy what now? That does not make sense. Above them, Gerada signaled to bring over the support device, gesturing to the teaching assistant. The covering cloth was pulled away. Immediately, an emerald green sphere appeared, and the students gasped in astonishment. Is that a mana measurement device? I have heard it is extremely rare. Gerada reached out and touched the sphere. Everyone seeing this for the first time, right? She cast a subtle glance, as if to say, now it is time to know your own mana values. Who knows what we will find? A wave of green light radiated from the sphere, leaving the students in awe. Gerada teased, clearly enjoying herself. Among us, there is a monster. Damien glanced at the projection on the ceiling, his fingers brushing lightly against his lips in thought. Gerada cast a sharp glance and said coolly, all right, the method of use is very simple. She gave a curt order, Arjun, place your hand on the crystal orb and channel your mana into it. Arjun quickly obeyed. Yes, madam. The instructor then placed her own hand on the orb. Immediately, it radiated a dazzling light that made Arjun widen her eyes in awe. Before long, strange circular symbols began to appear within the crystal sphere. Arjun looked up in astonishment, her mouth hanging open in disbelief. Gerada turned her emotionless face toward the group and spoke evenly, now, pay close attention. Among all the indicators, the most important one lies right here in the center, the refinement index, which measures the quality and geographical force, ranked from level 1 to level 10. She pointed at the glowing circle as she explained. Arjun has reached level 14. Considering that last year's freshman averaged around level 3, this is an excellent result. Arjun scratched her head shyly. Thank you, madam. Gerada gave her a brief, assessing look and continued. Next, we will measure the total mana capacity. It is quite simple. Go ahead and channel your mana. Yes, Arjun responded and did as instructed. Gerada went on in her calm, authoritative tone. The total mana capacity is divided into 100 levels in total. Numbers appeared on the circle 17 accompanied by a glowing notification. Arjun, level 17. Last year's average was level 15. This year's result is slightly higher. A faint smile touched Gerada's lips. Judging from both the quality and quantity of mana, it is clear that Arjun has been working diligently. Her rare words of praise made Arjun blush bright red. Well done, she added lightly. A boy nearby, clearly impressed, murmured, I wish I could score that high. Meanwhile, Asta was not listening. He sat deep in thought, muttering under his breath, ha. It is like I can already see the future. He reflected for a moment, watching Arjun. That girl will definitely become a devoted research scholar someday. In the vast hall, Gerada's voice rang out again. I have other matters to attend to, so I will be taking my leave here. Please continue mana measurements under the assistant instructor's supervision. Yes, madam, several students answered in unison. A cheerful girl beamed. I need to focus on the breathing technique this time. Her friend giggled beside her. And I will handle the refinement part. A boy with snow-white hair smiled and waved. Asta, let us go too. Yeah, sure, Asta replied, startled slightly out of his thoughts. Just as they started to walk, a loud voice shouted from behind, making Asta pause and turn around. What the crazy? The magic circle flared again, drawing gasps of surprise. Refinement level 6, did not they say the average was 3? And total mana capacity level 20, unbelievable. Someone called out, "Hey, you, what is your name?" The girl in question turned her cold eyes toward them and answered flatly, "Furion." Then, with a proud tone, she added, "Furion de Denai." Asta mulled it over. Same family as Dahlia, he thought, glancing at the girl. Different hair color, though probably a branch family. She just said her name, and now we are already meeting the whole clan. What a show-off. The instructor, appearing somewhat impressed, looked up and commented, "Truly befitting of such a distinguished bloodline. Those are remarkable numbers." He stroked his chin thoughtfully. Although her total mana output is slightly low for a refinement level of 6, it is still an exceptionally high result. Furion nodded with a quiet smile. "I see." Just then, Damien stirred awake. So noisy. What is going on?" Asta glanced over. "Nothing. Go back to sleep." Then he froze. "Wait, no, do not sleep, it is your turn to measure mana." Damien blinked in confusion. "Measure mana, what for?" Asta sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I do not know, but it is a good thing, right? Might as well do it since we are in class." Suddenly, Damien's eyes lit up. "Really, then I will try." He jumped to his feet, nearly shouting with excitement. Asta groaned and covered his face in embarrassment. "Oh, come on. Do not make a scene like that." From a distance, a few students whispered among themselves, "That is him, the young heir of Blandor. He looks younger than I thought. And the one beside him must be Asta, the guy who defeated Hickster, right?" Another chimed in curiously, "Then who is the one leading them?" "Who knows," someone replied dryly. "Probably best not to find out." Asta stared off blankly, shoulders slumping. "Damn it. I never asked to get famous for punching someone." The instructor, smiling warmly, beckoned Damien over. "So you are the young master, you have only taken the test once, have not you? Come try again." Damien pointed at the crystal sphere curiously. "So I just channel mana into this thing?" "Exactly," the instructor nodded. Without hesitation, Damien pressed his hand onto the crystal orb. The crowd below went pale. "What the hell? Is this even normal?" Furion's expression darkened. "No," she muttered, horrified. "Impossible." Moments later, the circle around the orb blazed to life and the results echoed through the hall in disbelief. Refinement level, 9. Total mana capacity, 67. Someone gasped. "Wait, is that a bug? That can't be real." Asta stared at the instructor in weary resignation. "That is just how mortals look at geniuses." He recalled a saying, ordinary reasoning could never comprehend the radiant, towering wall that separated talent from mediocrity. Looking at Damien, Asta sighed inwardly. So it is confirmed he is a genius. But I did not expect him to surpass the average by that much. Damien, meanwhile, blinked innocently. "So, that is considered high." Asta gave a faint, rueful smile. "That alone explains why the Blandor clan is called monstrous. His very life force is on another level." He narrowed his eyes, thoughtful. If Damien had worked hard in his previous life, the balance of the continent itself might have changed. But this time, things will be different. He thought of Farron. If Blandor continues to stand as Declan's greatest obstacle, then all I need to do is help Damien transcend the realm of mortals. The instructor wiped the sweat from his brow and forced a smile. "You, Damien, truly live up to Blandor's reputation. Remarkable talent, but do not get complacent. A mage's rank is not decided by mana alone." Damien grinned innocently. "Yes, sir." Then he turned, eyes bright with excitement. "Hey, have you taken the test yet?" Asta replied simply, "Not yet." Damien beamed. "Then do it, come on, I want to see." Asta stood there silently for a moment, watching the others. He could sense that everyone was curious about him, a nobody with no prestigious lineage, yet somehow standing beside the young master of Blandor. And even taking down Dolanfi's second son. Finally, Asta exhaled. "All right then. Let us give it a try." He planned carefully. "Better to keep things low. A modest result should save me a lot of trouble." The instructor looked up. "Your name?" "Aster," he answered calmly. "Hands out of your pockets," the instructor added dryly. Asta obeyed, placing his hand onto the crystal orb, carefully fine-tuning his mana output. Almost instantly, his fingers tightened. He released just enough mana to seem ordinary, yet something felt off. Wait. Why's the restriction set so low? Then the entire area flooded with blinding light. This can't be right. A notification appeared, refinement level, 10. The mana circle spun wildly before another alert flickered into view. Threshold exceeded. Please recalibrate the base level. The class erupted in murmurs. What the? It exceeded the standard limit, is that even possible? Damien shouted in awe, that is insane. Asta turned toward the instructor, expression calm. Seems like a malfunction. We will probably need to redo the measurement. The instructor nodded awkwardly. Yes. That must be it. But Damien narrowed his eyes with a mischievous grin. No way. That is not a malfunction. I know what that was. The instructor coughed, trying to maintain composure. A HEM system recalibrated. Please try again. Yes, sir, Asta replied politely, placing his hand back on the orb. A new reading appeared. Refinement level, 3. Total mana capacity, 15. Everyone collectively sighed in relief. Ah, there we go, just a system glitch. We knew it. Asta also breathed out softly, thinking, that is better. I was more careful this time, keeping the balance sure is not easy. Then, suddenly, a voice from the crowd broke the calm, sharp and incredulous. Holy shit. Asta sprayed his hair with setting gel, then turned to Damien with a baffled look. Damien, what the hell was that supposed to mean? Damien looked about ready to explode, snapping back, what do you think it means, after seeing crap like that? What else can I say but, holy shit, it is real, damn it. Asta did not reply, he just sighed and glanced away, uneasy. Outside, the afternoon sun bathed the academy in gold. At Mage Hall No. 1, Gerada stood with her arms crossed, gazing through the tall windows with a grave expression. Her eyes flicked thoughtfully toward the distant towers. Mage Hall No. 2's reconstruction is going smoothly, she mused silently. But her brows furrowed as she looked out over the courtyard. Still. Why did Declan, more specifically, Archmage Callahan, end up clashing with Perun? A soft sigh escaped her lips. Well, Perun was once a renowned professor. He probably knew what he was doing. Not really my concern. The quiet was soon broken by the sound of footsteps. Professor Gerada, a voice called. She turned slightly as a young instructor approached, clutching a stack of papers. I am Yorbi. I have brought the mana measurement data from today. Gerada took the documents and began skimming through them. Overall, the average scores this term are quite high. Furian. Not bad, though a bit lacking compared to the Denai family's reputation. Her eyes stopped when she reached another name. Damien. Gerada's expression softened. So this is the one. The boy with the highest aptitude in Blandor's recorded history. I will need to keep a close eye on him. But then, her eyes widened abruptly. Her gaze froze on the next page. Aster. The report read, first measurement resulted in an error. Retest conducted. Gerada frowned. An error, but it says the cause was an exceeded threshold. Her face darkened, brows knitting tightly. Aster, huh? Back in the dormitory, Asta pointed straight at Damien, voice rising. That was my line. Damn it, I used it first. Damien was not backing down. And why should not I use it too? I want to. Someone nearby groaned helplessly. Guys, please. Can you not argue over that stupid phrase again? In the blink of an eye, a magnificent green dragon took form. How's it looking, my friend? Damien asked with a serious expression, brows furrowing. Do you really think this is fine as it is? Asta lowered his gaze and answered indifferently, yeah. I think that is good enough. Damien nodded thoughtfully, then concluded, all right then, we will call this version 2 of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. But before he could finalize it, Asta interjected, wait, make it more dynamic. Let its wings spread out, and have it open its mouth like it is about to lunge forward. He paused briefly, then added, you remember the lion statue back home, right? It looked way more powerful with its mouth open. Sitting nearby, Chenbia's eyes went wide with amazement. Wow. It is actually that simple to do. Damien burst into laughter, his face lighting up. Oh, I love that idea. As Asta watched Damien eagerly adjust the details, he could not help but think to himself, that monstrous talent of his, he is shaping that 12-sided construct like it is child's play, turning a basic mana control test into a game. Chenbia, on the other hand, looked utterly defeated, his face a picture of despair. The world really is vast. I am just a useless nobody in comparison. Asta glanced at him and sighed. Yeah, I get how you feel, he said quietly. But what can you do? You just have to accept reality and keep moving forward. Before his thoughts could wander further, Damien suddenly called out, "Hey, my friend." He turned around with a radiant grin. Today's been great. I really think coming to the academy was the right choice. The unexpected sincerity in Damien's tone caught Asta completely off guard. His eyes widened for a moment, then softened. He let out a small laugh, quiet, but genuine. Somehow, that simple remark lifted a heavy weight off his chest. Not long after, in the quiet dormitory building of the academy, Asta sat alone, deep in thought, staring at a small pouch in his hands. He held it with both hands, calculating. Callahan's dimensional pouch. It is locked, but with a bit of arcane security manipulation and mana structure decryption, I can dismantle the spell matrix he used. He frowned slightly, muttering to himself, if we had the right equipment, it would take less than a week. But since I am doing this in secret in my room, it is stretched to nearly a month. A fleeting image surfaced in his mind, a vial of potion glimmering under light. At least I have not been wasting my time. I managed to merge the elixir I got from Blander into my mana flow. The memory of Asta resting his chin on his hand, studying diligently at the academy, flickered in his mind, a younger version of him absorbing every useful piece of knowledge he could find. Then, with firm hands, he broke the seal of the dimensional pouch. All right, he murmured, time to open this thing. He began rummaging through the spatial pocket. Let us see what we have got here. After a moment, he pulled out a small glass vial. A potion bottle. Huh. Next came a large cloak. He examined it briefly. Completely useless. Then, as he reached deeper, his fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. Pulling it out, he found a silver bracelet. His expression sharpened. A protective artifact. He activated it with a calm look. This might come in handy. The defensive resistance is actually pretty good for its tier. In the next moment, he continued rummaging through the spatial pouch. Where is it? Ah, here it is. Asta raised high the book in his hand. Declan's prophetic flame magic, red fire. The smirking face of Farron flashed in his mind. A branch of southern fire, developed by the man who devoted his life to studying it, a cursed type of magic capable of burning through even energy barriers. Thinking that, Asta slid the book back into the pouch. Of course, only someone who has reached the level of a true master can burn through a barrier. It is not something one can learn overnight. I will have to take my time with it. He absent-mindedly muttered, now that I think about it. Today's that day, is not it? The midterm exams. Down in the academy courtyard, a massive crowd of students had already gathered. Damien shouted excitedly, midterms, midterms, while Asta beside him groaned. Too many people. Chenbia chuckled and replied, from class M1 all the way to us, everyone's gathered here. A few seconds later, Chenbia leaned closer and whispered, hey, have you heard the rumor? Asta tilted his head. What rumor? Grinning slyly, Chenbia said, word is the midterm will be a canyon raid. A few days ago, some M1 kids overheard the administration staff saying they needed to refit the canyon area during this busy period. Hearing that, Asta only gave him a quiet look, deep in thought. Chenbia said there are 3 parts to the midterm practical. Images began to form in his mind. First, a dim stone corridor, the trial chamber, where participants had to navigate a maze of tunnels to reach the end. Then came the image of rugged mountains, the canyon raid, a test of reaching the goal point first. And lastly, the simulation room, where they would face off against projected opponents or monsters. Performance measured partly by their canyon raid results. Asta let out a faint hum. It does not really matter what form the test takes. As long as I surpass everyone as usual, it will be fine. But as he pondered further, he could not help but think, still. Chenbia probably won't perform well. Meanwhile, Chenbia was busy planning aloud. If it really is a canyon raid, everyone here will start from the same spot. Magic will be flying everywhere. So if we maintain defensive spells while pushing forward. Just then, a commanding voice echoed across the courtyard. Silence, everyone. The speaker stood tall in the distance, long hair fluttering in the wind. It is an honor. Looking around, he introduced himself. I am Professor Farron, instructor of Class M1 in the School of Magic. I have been assigned to oversee this midterm examination. As soon as Asta saw him, a faint smile crossed his face. Long time no see, Professor Farron. The dark circles under your eyes look even worse than the last time I saw you. Standing before the gathered students, Farron raised his voice. As you all know, today marks the day of your midterm examination. He parted his lips slightly, speaking each word with deliberate calm. Your test today will be. The final 3 words made Chenbia's face drain of color. The trial chamber. He trembled, muttering under his breath, no. My plan. It is over. Next to him, Damien stabbed another wound straight into his pride. Liar. Farron's eyes swept over the crowd. Now, I will explain the rules. Line up by class and prepare yourselves. Moments later, he snapped his fingers. The purpose of this test is simple. A spell flared to life behind him. The trial chamber is a labyrinthine underground sewer. If you reach the final gate, you pass the test. Regardless of the route you take, all paths lead to the end, so there is no need to worry. Chenbia exhaled in relief. Sounds easy enough. But just as he said that, Farron snapped his fingers again. However, that alone would make this a meaningless race. In an instant, a creature took shape behind him, a massive golem, its stone body glinting with faint magical light. Chenbia froze. What? A golem, in this test? You have got to be kidding me. From the side, Damien narrowed his eyes. Watch your mouth, buddy. Farron continued, his tone utterly composed. In the end, it is nothing more than a clumsy battle automaton. Given its level, it should pose some difficulty, but I have exposed its core and reduced its durability, so you will be able to defeat it without much trouble. He paused briefly, then added, that said, in a confined space, it will catch you instantly. Unfortunate, is not it? The students murmured uneasily among themselves. If it were an open area, it would not be that bad. One said. Farron clicked his tongue, visibly annoyed. For mages, you all think far too timidly. His thoughts drifted for a moment to another face, a boy named Puller, who had once pushed himself to the brink of exhaustion. Perhaps it is just the environment. Then his gaze hardened. Still, there are a few promising ones. His eyes landed first on a girl with piercing blue eyes, someone whose fear was tempered by willpower. Next, a student with short brown hair, the kind of look only those unafraid of death possessed. Then, his attention shifted to a male student wearing a smug, confident grin. And finally, to Damien, who sat idly sucking on his finger. Utterly uninterested. Farron's expression flattened. Disqualified. That one clearly lacks initiative. He fell silent for a moment, lips parting slightly as if lost in thought. Then, clearing his throat, Farron uttered two calm, commanding words, that is enough. His tone was devoid of emotion as he continued. The golem will only patrol the corridors, responding to those who draw its attention. You may choose to defeat it. Or evade it. With that, Farron held up a small silver bracelet. Additionally, each of you will be given a test armband. These armbands function similarly to an energy barrier, offering a layer of protection. He clenched his fist, activating the device to demonstrate. A shimmering veil of mana flickered around his arm, then dissipated as he spoke again. If your energy shield is shattered, you will be disqualified and the golem will cease attacking you. It is an excellent competitive system, do not you think? The students glanced uneasily at one another, none daring to speak a word out of turn. Farron's eyes swept over the crowd, his voice cutting through the silence. Finally. Since you all seem so passive, allow me to make a proposal. He suddenly smiled, a cold, sharp curve of the lips that made several students instinctively tense up. Show me something impressive. It does not matter who reaches the end first or how many of you get eliminated. His next words, however, sent a ripple of energy through the air and through Asta's heart. Whoever leaves the greatest impression, Farron said, will receive a personal reward from me, a prize that is anything but ordinary. Asta's grin widened, his thoughts buzzing with anticipation. Anything but ordinary, huh, now that is interesting. At the academy, there was a place famous across the entire eastern continent, Lawfighter, the largest library in the region. The library was divided into 3 tiers: upper, middle, and lower, and the only tier Asta could access was the lower one. Inside that section, he stood before the shelves, deep in thought. When he came here searching for clues about the firemark, he could not find a single magic tome within the lower tier. Information related to the problem flashed rapidly through his mind, and he reached a clear conclusion: to find any real clues, he would need access to at least the middle tier. But both the middle and upper tiers were restricted to royalty, high-ranking nobles, or the great houses. Other than that, the only way in was to be recommended by at least 3 professors. Snapping back to reality, Asta took in the scene before him and quietly analyzed the situation. In other words, he needed to secure Professor Farron's reward. Even though he only wanted to progress step by step, the people around him never seemed willing to leave him alone. A mischievous smile crept across his face as he muttered inwardly, "Well, I have memorized the entire layout anyway. Let us see if I can stay calm and get through the midterm evaluation." Above them, the sky was bright and clear, while below, preparations for an important test were underway. The explanation for the practical exam had just ended. "I will give you all some time to prepare. Go receive your materials from the assistant instructor." Suddenly, 2 students rushed up anxiously. "Assistant instructor, do you have flower bombs and, flint stones while we are at it?" Without hesitation, the man rejected the request. "Your main attribute is fire." "Forget it." Another student stepped forward. "Assistant instructor, I need a golem controller." Once again, the man refused outright. "Stop looking for shortcuts." "Forget it." Behind the noisy crowd, Asta watched the chaos unfold and could not help commenting helplessly, "What a mess. Hard to tell if they are mages or just thugs." Then a familiar voice drew his attention. "Professor." Asta looked over to see Damien casually making his request. "I would like some vine seeds." "Just 20 is enough." The assistant instructor blinked in confusion. "I am not a professor." "But did you just say vine seeds, Damien? Your main attribute is." Before he could finish, Damien displayed his power right in front of him. "I do not have an attribute, but I can use plant magic." The assistant instructor stared speechlessly and finally sighed. "I understand." Damien happily received his materials and thanked him sincerely. "Thanks a lot." Behind him, Chen Bia swallowed hard, trying to build up courage. Asta stood quietly beside them, observing every reaction. Even Damien, who always seemed like someone who only wanted to fool around, was preparing in his own way. Could Chen Bia break out of her shell this time? A few minutes later, preparation time ended. Professor Perun's voice echoed in everyone's ears. "I will now assign starting points. Confirm your name and proceed to your designated location." Asta and his 2 friends stared intently at the map. He scanned the board, searching for his own position. "I am at starting point number 3. After confirming, he checked on his friends' placements. Damien waved energetically as he headed off. "See you inside." Chen Bia offered a gentle smile and wished them well. "Asta, Damien, good luck on the test." Asta did not respond, lost in thought. Everyone had their own starting point. A few seconds later, he arrived at his location. It seemed that 6 people were assigned to point number 3, all of them strangers. The situation reminded him of when, back during his time as an evaluator, he had been assigned to an unfamiliar unit. It was not pleasant. Suddenly, someone approached. "Are you Aster?" He glanced at the 3 boys and silently assessed them. What is it? These were not M3 group students, and he had never seen such arrogant faces before. The boy standing in front, the one with the most conceited expression, stated boldly, "My name is Dibby. I heard you are pretty good in a fight, so I would like to make you an offer." Asta remained perfectly calm. "Go on." Dibby smirked with shameless arrogance. "I want to buy the bracelets of the eliminated players." He revealed the deal with excitement. 30 gold coins per bracelet. Including you and us, we are 3 people. If we eliminate the other 3, I will give you 90 gold. Hearing that, Asta quietly began calculating. 30 gold coins, roughly the monthly income of an ordinary family for a single bracelet. Not a bad price. Across from him, Dibby continued speaking. This is not a bad offer for a drifter from the gray zone like you. Even if the young lady is protecting you for now, how long do you think that will last? You would be better off finding your own way. Asta still did not respond. He simply stared at the boy, expression unreadable. What the kid was saying was not entirely wrong. His thoughts ran fast and cold. Other people might call this a cowardly deal, but these guys were simply using what they had. If they had the money, who could really complain? Clearly, they were gaining the advantage here. But something did not sit right. Asta finally asked, "Why is it 90 gold coins?" Dibby assumed the issue was price, so he casually raised the offer. Not enough, fine. 35 per bracelet. A total of 105. Before he could finish, Asta cut him off smoothly. Even so, the math is still wrong. Asta lifted his hand and pointed toward the 3 students standing nearby. It looks like I will have to calculate things properly for you noble gentlemen. There are 3 of them, right? Dibby answered confidently, that is right. Asta then pointed at the 3 boys on Dibby's side. And including you 3, that makes 6. Dibby responded cautiously, correct. Asta's expression hardened as he spoke with clinical seriousness. Then why are not you calculating the price of your own lives? At 35 gold coins per person, the total should be 210. All 3 boys froze, stunned into complete silence. Anger began to simmer inside Dibby's chest. What kind of loan shark logic is this? Does this vulgar nobody not understand his place? Where does this bastard get the confidence to talk like that? But he forced himself to answer, restraining his rage. 35 is not enough, fine. I will raise it to 40. But no higher. Asta smiled in satisfaction. Good. That brings the total to 240. The moment he heard that, Dibby cursed inwardly. Is he insane? Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind, and he sneered to himself. Now I get it. A pathetic wretch like you is just trying to squeeze every coin you can from this opportunity. He mocked Asta silently, not realizing that this very greed he imagined would be the thing to doom him. A filthy, uneducated mutt like you can't possibly understand what is coming. I have wasted enough time. Grinding his teeth in irritation, he reminded himself of the young lady's orders. There was no better hunting dog than Asta for this job. But if this dog went rabid, he would simply have to find another method. With open disgust, Dibby turned away to leave. So the negotiation's over, fine. I will pretend I never heard anything. But Asta had no intention of letting him walk away. His voice dropped to a cold command. Where do you think you are going? Fine, leave after you pay for your bracelets first. Dibby spun around, shouting furiously. What the hell are you babbling about? Asta remained perfectly calm as he explained. If we load 3 packages and 3 people onto a wagon, and you take the packages, then at the very least, you should pay the people for their share, should not you? Then he gave a sly, predatory smile. Now pay up. 120 gold coins. 40 for each of you. At that instant, something in Dibby's head seemed to snap. One of his companions could not hold back any longer and exploded in rage. You filthy lowborn, I have never seen such a brazen bastard. How dare you forget your place? Another sneered with open contempt. You think noble Dibby is anything like you? Even his distant ancestors held the rank of baron. Off to the side, Dibby spoke a single word with chilling sharpness. Fakon. Fakon ignored him and continued shouting in anger, Dibby, do not stop me. Today I am going to teach that bastard a lesson he will never forget. Dibby called his name again. Fakon. This time, Fakon finally sensed something was off. He fell silent and turned back. Dibby was glaring at him, suppressing his fury as he issued a cold command, are you done yet? Then he pulled out a pouch of coins and handed it to Asta. 120 gold coins. That is what you said, right, fine, I will give it to you. Internally, though, he was desperately trying to calm himself. Get a grip, Dibby. The young lady's orders matter more than these idiots. He forced himself to focus on the enormous benefits awaiting them. If we secure this deal with her, our guild will grow far bigger than anything these fools could imagine. Asta accepted the pouch leisurely, then spoke as if something had only now occurred to him. I did not realize I was dealing with someone so important. Immediately, he broke into a delighted grin. In that case, the price for a customer of such noble status must be doubled. That brings the total to 160 gold coins. Dibby, unbelievably calm, handed over the additional money. Fine. 160 gold coins. Then he stared icily into Asta's eyes, threatening in a low voice, "From this moment on, I will show you just how miserable your life can become over 160 gold coins. Keep your eyes open and wait for it." Above them, the sun was already high in the sky. It was finally time to enter the testing grounds. One of the instructors activated the magic array while reminding the students, "And I repeat, if your bracelet stops functioning, you will be disqualified." The force field activates when your body receives a physical attack. Chen Bia lifted his hand, examining the bracelet as he listened. "Or an attack containing mana," the teacher continued. Bia's face tightened as he focused on the ring around his wrist. The evaluator's voice echoed through the arena, "If your force field breaks, the bracelet will immediately fall to the ground. The wearer will be automatically teleported out of the test area. Therefore, there is no risk of severe injury." Not far away, Dahlia furrowed her eyebrows in concentration. A brown-haired girl nearby stared ahead nervously. As for Asta, he waited with complete indifference for the trial to begin. Behind him, Dibby glared daggers into his back. Once the instructor finished explaining the rules, he turned around and nodded. Perun raised his cup of water and gave the relaxed signal, "Begin." Instantly, the magic arrays lit up one after another. Other instructors quickly operated the screens, displaying the internal video feed. Teleportation complete. Evaluation has begun. Perun glanced at the footage, silently assessing. Dahlia and Damien are starting at the same point, and suddenly, one of the monitors flickered violently, causing the operator to panic. "What is wrong with this thing?" Someone beside him gasped. "What? The screen turned off. Did not you check the magic eye properly?" The operator shook his head desperately. "No, I checked it thoroughly." Perun set his cup down and spoke calmly, "Enough. I also checked the magic eye earlier. Now tell me what starting point is that?" The young man turned, nervous and hesitant. It is number 3. And at that very spot, Asta stood in a full blaze of fury, declaring, "You young masters are being fined an additional 320 coins for insolence." The sun blazed high overhead. On the ground below, the assistant instructor activated the magic array while explaining the rules. "Let me repeat, if your bracelet stops functioning, you will be disqualified. The magical barrier will trigger upon receiving a direct physical hit, or any attack imbued with mana. Once the barrier breaks, the bracelet itself will remain intact." In the arena, Asta listened calmly to every word. "The wearer will then be forcibly teleported outside the trial area," the instructor added. "So there is no need to worry about serious injury." Behind Asta, however, Dibby was glaring at him with seething resentment. Once the explanation ended, Perun immediately announced, "You may begin." In an instant, every group was teleported into the testing zone. Seconds later, they materialized at their assigned locations. Teleportation complete. The moment the array vanished, Asta summoned a green orb of mana and spoke, "All right, my dear customers." He launched the orb into the ceiling, then turned back with a mocking glance. "The way you three are staring at me. It is like you are trying to burn a hole through my neck." Smirking with contempt, he added, "We do not have much time, so let us get started." Hearing that, Dibby's trio immediately mobilized their forces, hurling everything at Asta. Dibby let out a smug, condescending laugh. "You arrogant brat. Let us see how long that confidence lasts." A fireball formed and shot straight toward Asta. He quickly moved aside, analyzing the situation in his head. "Let us see. Getting hit by a spell means disqualification and instant teleportation. In that case." His figure skimmed past the fireball like a gust of wind. Without hesitation, he closed the distance to the 3 nobles and raised his leg for a strike. "All I need to do is dodge and hit back. And if I pull my mana back right before the impact." His kick landed with sharp, controlled force. Dibby did not even have time to react. Asta's foot slammed into his neck. Calmly, Asta thought, "That won't count as a disqualifying hit." He spun around the next second, unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks on Dibby's companions, using this new method to beat them down. Honestly, it feels great. Then he ducked under another fireball and finished off the remaining attacker. His spirits soared. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Moments later, he stood tall in the now empty corridor. Dust from the scuffle still swirled in the air as he announced, "Our young master must be filthy rich recruiting all these guys in such a short time." "All right then." Asta glared coldly at Dibby. "That'll be 320 gold for the arrogance fee. And from this point on, I am deducting 1 silver for every hit." "Deal." In the labyrinth, dust still hung in the air like a fog after battle. Dibby struggled to stand, his voice hoarse with fury. "You bastard." His face was swollen beyond recognition, but that did not stop the stream of curses pouring from his mouth. "Just you wait, how dare you, someone like you." Asta did not bother listening. With a quick spell, he silenced Dibby. "Quiet." Then he eyed the glowing ring around the young noble and did some quick math. "Let us see. That is 100 hits, so that is 10 gold deducted." He sighed lightly. "It is really hard to control my strength without Damien around. In the end, we can't confuse the victim with the perpetrator." He picked up the bracelet, not even sparing Dibby another thought. "And obviously, I am the victim here." Asta put his belongings away and sat there, bored and deep in thought. "All right, I have collected 6 bracelets. Now what?" He dropped down onto the floor, legs folded, weighing his options. "I need recommendation slips from at least 3 professors. Which means that even after receiving Professor Farron's reward, I still need 2 more. That means another professor has to step up and vouch for me." Asta propped his chin on his palm, pondering. What kind of impressive performance should I even show them? His gaze drifted across the structures around him, and instantly an idea flashed through his mind. What if I just destroy this entire trial hall? I would only need to bring down the 4 pillars supporting the foundation. Then Asta rubbed his forehead and immediately shut that idea down. Am I insane? If I do that, I will become the enemy of the entire eastern continent. Unable to think of anything better, he temporarily gave up. Why am I stressing over this? If there is no one left to fight here, I will just head outside and look around. As he walked, he muttered under his breath, by the way, I wonder if those guys are all right. At that moment, on another side of the testing grounds, sounds of groaning and shouting echoed non-stop. Hey, this has got to be cheating. Damn it. How can he even do something like that? A terrified boy, eyes wide with panic, pleaded desperately. At this rate, all of us are going to get eliminated. Young master, please. He was on the verge of tears as he begged. Just let us pass. What had driven them into such a miserable state was none other than the golem controlled by Damien. The boy only laughed, thoroughly enjoying himself, and rejected their plea. Nope. With no other choice, the 3 examinees tried to flee. One of them attacked the golem while shouting, how the hell is he controlling a golem with vine seeds? His teammate complained through gritted teeth, damn it, those vines are blocking my magic. Suddenly, one of the boys tripped over a rock. He fell hard, rolling across the ground. The stumble cost him his chance to escape. Frozen in fear, he stared at the golem lumbering closer and closer. When it raised its arm to strike, the boy could not hold back and screamed at the top of his lungs. Elsewhere in the arena, Chen Bia pressed his back against a wall and spoke with a stern expression. All right. Listen everyone, I just want to pass this test. Okay. Hiding behind the corner, he shouted louder, so please, stop attacking me. Unfortunately, his classmates had no intention of complying. You are just a commoner. Shut up and hand over your bracelet. A short distance away, after attacking for a while, the white-haired girl finally grew tired and gasped for breath. She ordered sharply, hey, go back and grab him. The brown-haired girl scowled and refused. What? Why me? What if he stabs me in the back? Seeing that argument was not working, the white-haired girl softened her tone. Fine, then let him keep wasting his mana until he burns out. But her partner shot back without hesitation. How am I supposed to trust you? Did you forget you just stabbed that guy earlier? Behind the wall, Chen Bia took advantage of their bickering. Now's my chance. He immediately stood up and slipped away. Without paying any attention to the chaos behind him, he headed in a clear direction. I should not be greedy. All I need is to pass the test. That is enough. Quietly, he jogged down the corridor for a while. But suddenly, a strange sensation made him stop. Chen Bia lifted his hand in confusion. What is wrong? With my bracelet. He frowned as he tried to reason it out. Was I hit by magic without noticing, so I am getting eliminated after all? With a defeated sigh, he sat down in the corner and hugged his knees. I will probably get teleported out in a few seconds. But time passed, and he remained exactly where he was. Chen Bia blinked, puzzled. Why? Am I not being teleported? At that moment, a voice echoed across the trial grounds, interrupting his thoughts. Can everyone hear me? Hello, you little bookworms of Zenyan Academy. The instant he heard that voice, Chen Bia's eyes widened in horror. That sinister voice. That guy is not from the academy. Alarmed, he jumped to his feet, tense and ready. On the other side, the unknown intruder continued speaking leisurely. You may not know who we are, but I am sure some of you can guess. And if you can guess, then you already know exactly why we are doing this. At the same moment, that ominous voice echoed all the way to where Damien was. We have a message for you, the intruder declared. We have no demands. There is only the price you must pay for offending someone great. Damien had barely heard a few words before he wrinkled his nose in disgust. What, creepy? Beside him, the golem suddenly made a faint, strange noise, but no one had time to pay attention. The enemy's voice grew colder as he continued. Today, right here. Then he announced arrogantly. Every single one of you students will die. At that exact moment, all the external monitoring screens went pitch black at once. A frantic teaching assistant shouted, the control system just crashed. Inside the testing grounds, the intruder continued provoking them with icy satisfaction. There is no escape now. Die in despair. His cruelty clashed fiercely with the panicked shouts of instructors. All the magic eye monitors stopped working too. One teaching assistant, furious and unable to contain himself, roared. Damn it, who the hell are you bastards? Right then, Perun pushed himself up from his seat and spoke with commanding authority. That is enough. He issued orders calmly despite the chaos. Stop wasting your strength. Go find the professors immediately. And make sure you bring Professor Felina. The assistant turned back sharply and responded, yes, sir. He bolted off to deliver the orders. Hey, call the professors now, find Professor Felina, the dean to contact the dean immediately, hurry. Meanwhile, Perun's fury finally erupted. He slammed his hand down and shattered the surface of the table. His expression twisted into something terrifying as he growled. Those damn insects. How dare they? Back in the testing grounds, a damaged golem lay collapsed against a wall. Asta brushed his hair back, irritation dripping from his voice as he cursed under his breath. Damn it. What set him off was the sight of dozens more golems closing in from all sides. As they formed a tightening circle around him, Asta snapped in anger. What the hell is this? Asta moved with blistering speed as he struck down the golems in front of him. The more he fought, the heavier his heart grew. It had been roughly 10 minutes since that ominous voice had echoed through the testing area. As he watched the golems, a cold dread tightened inside him. Golems, things that were supposed to be slow, rigid, and predictable, were now moving with alarming speed and agility. He analyzed their movements mid-battle, realizing, they are pinpointing my exact position and charging straight at me. While defending himself, he sank deeper into thought. The gatekeeper golems were not supposed to act on their own. If they were invading the testing zone like this, it meant someone had tampered with the control system. Whoever did it must have pulled every golem out of storage. That explains why there are so many. But instead of fear, excitement lit up Asta's face as he broke into a wide grin. Who do they think they are messing with? I am the #1 trouble solver. I have survived everything except an aerial battle. With that thought, he conjured a glowing sphere of power and charged forward fearlessly. I will crush every last one of you. Elsewhere in the labyrinth, Chen Bia trudged along in utter despair. His expression was bleak as he muttered internally, if I would known it would turn out like this, I should have just let myself get eliminated early. I thought I was going to die. No, I am not dead yet. So that means I am about to die. Suddenly, he sensed someone approaching. He stared ahead, heart pounding. A survivor, who is it? As the figure came closer, the outline became unmistakably clear. Asta. Chen Bia instantly lit up, waving his arm in relief. But his voice weakened dramatically the moment he saw the swarm of golems tailing Asta. Tear. Asta, who breezed right past him without slowing down, still had the composure to offer a calm reminder. "Oh, it is you, Chen Bia. Run." Chen Bia screamed in panic and immediately sprinted after him. Asta cast a brief glance his way, sighing inwardly. He had sensed someone nearby and came to check, but it was not Damien. At this rate, Chen Bia will get caught. With that pathetic stamina, no chance. In that case, time for Plan B. He issued his order decisively. "Chen Bia, give me your armband." Startled, Chen Bia looked over in confusion. Asta's expression remained perfectly even as he explained. "The detection range of the golems is not this wide. The only reason they are chasing us this stubbornly," he cut straight to the truth, "is because the armband is connected to the control system. It is acting like an alarm beacon." Chen Bia's eyes widened as he pulled off the armband to inspect it. Then, voice trembling, he asked, "Then what about you, Asta?" Asta answered without the slightest hesitation. "I have already been marked as a target. My chances of survival are higher if they stay focused on me while you escape. I will hold them off and then go find Damien." He added calmly, as if stating a simple fact. "And you have family, do not you?" His tone grew firm. "Those who can live should survive." Chen Bia froze, eyes widening. Slowly, he lowered his gaze to the ground. In that moment, memories washed over him, his family's warm words. "My son, do not worry about anything. Just focus on your magic. No matter what anyone says, do not let them discourage you, understand? Big brother, you have to teach me after you graduate, okay?" He clenched his lips tightly, a silent decision forming inside him. Then, tears welling up, Chen Bia shouted with all the strength he had left. "Damn it! Damn it, you have to live, we have to meet again." Asta took the armband and gave a reassuring smile. "I know." Behind him, Chen Bia lowered his head and sprinted away with everything he had. "I do not have any other choice. I have to live." Faces flashed through his mind: his parents, who bought him a magic textbook instead of food. His little sister, who'd been forced to quit school because of him. All the opportunities his family should have enjoyed. Chen Bia pumped his legs harder, running forward as if he were getting closer to the ideal of the family he longed to protect. "I had to give those things back to them." But suddenly, his mother's final words surfaced in his memory, "Chen Bia. Our pride and our hope." His steps gradually slowed until he came to a stop. A hollow ache filled his chest as he wondered, am I someone worthy of pride? He stood frozen, replaying the labels others had placed on him: hesitant, cowardly, insignificant. A nobody. Then Chen Bia turned around. He saw Asta still fighting the swarm of golems, and the sight stabbed through him like a blade. Can someone like me really call himself worthy, if I abandon my friend? No. He spun around sharply, resolve burning through him. I won't let guilt crush me anymore. No matter how insignificant I am. I will never. He raised his hands, and an instant later, golden light burst to life around him. Deep in his heart, a decision had been made: I will never give up. Chen Bia gathered every ounce of power inside his body. I have to use the strongest spell I know. The image of his master flickered in his mind. Chen Bia whispered a desperate prayer. The spell my master, the one who awakened my talent, gave to me. Please. Blood streamed from his nose under the strain, but he did not stop. Please. In a blink, a spear formed from the stone and soil around him. Please work. Earth spear. He gritted his teeth, eyes locked fiercely on the enemy ahead. In that moment, his master's voice echoed through his memories. Well, the name sounds pretty cool, does not it? Chen Bia remembered the pride on the old man's face. Still, look closely. His master had imagined the spell in perfect clarity: its grandeur, its force. A knight's lance that pierced through anything in its path. Back in reality, Chen Bia's face was drained and ghastly pale, but he did not care. He shouted with all his remaining breath. Asta. Hearing the cry, Asta turned around in alarm. just in time to see Chen Bia hurl the spear with everything he had. The projectile flashed forward like a bolt of golden lightning, tearing through the golems and obliterating them in one sweeping strike. Asta stared at the devastation, stunned. This magic. It does not just reshape the stone in the testing hall. It changes its very nature. His thoughts faltered. Altering both form and essence, that is incredibly difficult. A complicated mix of emotions stirred in his chest. This is. On the other side, the moment the attack finished, Chen Bia coughed up blood. He looked utterly ruined, unsteady, breathless, barely hanging on. Asta immediately reached his side as Chen Bia's legs gave out. Chen Bia, he called steadily, catching him before he could collapse. Chen Bia forced a shaky smile, pride glimmering faintly in his eyes. A long time ago, my master, or I guess that is what you would call him, he gave me that spell. Called it Earth Spear. The name is pretty cool, right? Asta gave a calm, almost indifferent remark. It is not exactly an impressive name. Chen Bia stared at him in disbelief. Really? Hearing that, Asta softened his tone and amended, but it is not completely unimpressive either. He went on, his voice steady and sincere. With spells like this, the one who truly proves their worth is the person using them. Whether it sounds impressive or not, it all depends on what you do with it. Chen Bia was so moved he could only whisper his name, Asta. But before he could say anything more, Asta abruptly shoved a vial against his lips and forced the potion into his mouth. So stop acting like you are about to die. You are not going to die from something like that. Chen Bia coughed and whined miserably, it hurts. And it itches so much. Asta waited until the boy regained a little strength before letting himself think ahead. All right. What am I supposed to do with him now? I can't drag him along, but I can't just abandon him either. Next to him, Chen Bia looked down at his own body in amazement, marveling, is this really the power of the potion? Asta closed his eyes to sense the enemy's positions. Let us see. The entire layout of the labyrinth unfolded in his mind with absolute clarity. If I can feel its presence, then it is in that direction. A moment later, Asta rose to his feet and pointed ahead. Chen Bia, go straight that way. When you reach the fork, take the right path. You will meet up with the other students. Hearing that, Chen Bia immediately grew anxious. Asta. What about you? Asta did not answer. Instead, he turned his face to the side, scanning the surroundings. In his eyes, a strange stream of red energy shimmered faintly, all flowing toward a single direction. The flow of mana heading toward the control chamber was unsettling familiar, yet undeniably unlike Dakulin's style. Because of that, Asta's expression hardened into something grave as he finally replied, there is something I need to take care of. Inside, he had already made his decision. I have to go find out what is happening.